Shalom. I am getting my first title graphic here. All right. Let me see. All right. Shalom, shalom, y'all. Thank you guys for tuning in. I'll probably get started in about 30 seconds or so. Hope you guys are having a good day so far. It's definitely getting ready to get real interesting on this study. real interesting. But I'll go ahead and start praying in about 30 seconds. I think I'm pretty good here. I got that up. Make sure I have all right. Yeah, I think I'm pretty solid right now. All right, y'all. So I'm gonna go ahead. And pray in, like we always do, and then I'll give you guys this intro for today. All right. Dear Abba Haya, we just thank you for your love and your mercy and your grace that you saw fit for us to be here again for another study. We thank you for the platform to be able to do so, this technology to be able to do so, to be able to connect with our brothers and sisters. I thank you for allowing me to be a vessel to others, a servant to others, to be able to help and steer in the right direction, and as well as enjoy the studies, whatever your spirit gives us, that I didn't prepare for. I thank you for allowing me to be able to learn and be able to not just be a hearer or speaker of the word, but also a doer, as my brothers and sisters are also doing. And we just ask that you continue to allow these studies to point towards you, towards your Son, towards you, Hamashiach, towards you, Father. And we just ask that you, especially for today's study, that you prepare our hearts and our minds, allow us to get in that right mindset and right spirit, cover us as we learn and as we interact and as we communicate and as we see these images and read these different things that is in your word. I ask that you just cover us, cover our mind, allow us to truly lock into what you're trying to get us to prepare for and see. And ultimately be able to go back in our own studies, in our own time with you, our personal time with you, intimate time with you, to be able to learn more and seek more true wisdom without any negative emotional ties or anything of that nature. And we just ask that you forgive us accordingly, Abba, as you see fit. Things that we did that we shouldn't have done, or anything of that nature, Abba, allow us to be clean going into this study, and allow us to truly just absorb whatever is coming for this study. And we just give you all the praise, all the glory, all the honor. In the name of your Son, we pray. Amen. 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 All right, y'all. I'm going to give you guys the intro real quick. Just a forewarning. This is a heavier study. You guys know, like sometimes it's going to be light, sometimes it's going to be real, you know, interactive in a sense. Sometimes it's going to be really, sometimes it's going to really like set you on fire. Everything should set you on fire, your spirit on fire, especially now with all the studies that are coming. We're elevating in wisdom now and truly growing in the spirit. So, you know, just a forewarning, like this study is going to start off really, you know, you guys know it's always like a progression, but it's going to move pretty quickly into that progression, and it's just going to be like, oh my goodness. But you know, I wanted to make sure I also read this scripture as well. All right. And I just want to make sure I say it correctly. I remember it, but I just want to make sure I'm reading it. Basically, the Most High has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind. All right. That is from 2 Timothy 1:7. There's another translation that says, the Most High has not given us a spirit of fear and timidity, but of power, love, and self-discipline, self-control. Okay? So if you guys remember, if you ever watched any other studies, or if you ever could just go research it yourself, if you don't know, there's a big difference between phobos fear and yer fear, right, in the Hebrew. With yer fear, you get the, like Sirach says, is like the fear is the beginning of wisdom. And that includes the reverence, that includes the being in awe and rejoicing, that includes the righteousness, the wisdom, the self-control, the characteristics that are coming through the works that you're going to end up doing, or that you do in righteousness, right, through wisdom. So all these things are connected. We don't ever try to forget our foundations, obviously, because everything flows through our foundations: wisdom, fear, and righteousness. So when it comes down to this study today, there are going to be things that may put you in a mindset where you feel phobos fear. And that is when you're like scared, you're in a mindset of like literally like being afraid, and you get away from the comfort of the Most High by still also being in fear of Him, right? So that's just letting you guys know, like this is for us to understand the times and what's coming, and it's not by accident that this study has come up, because it's just what we're going to see is just going to be like, it's going to be pretty mind-blowing for a lot of people. And it was mind-blowing for me while I was even doing the study. And even still, I still, just like when I'm telling you guys, I still had to make sure I was not feeling like some type of fear, phobos fear, for myself as well, right? But just that fear of the Most High and just really being on fire for Him. And only that spirit that you have in you can do that, because that's what also is in the spirit, which is counsel, right? So let the spirit counsel you, counsel your mindset, counsel, you know, that self-control of the emotions and things of that nature that we've talked about in many studies. So just wanted to give that forewarning. And I have a lot of slides, so I really need you guys to be patient with me. If you are on the live today, especially if you're watching later, you know, you're a lot more blessed in a sense of you can pause it and obviously go back or whatever. But today, just really be patient with me. It's a lot of slides to get through. Of course, Instagram is kind of tough trying to figure out which slide it is. Probably going to have to end up moving to did I not bring my water? Probably going to have to end up moving to Zoom soon, so it can be more organized, in the sense I don't have to deal with this Instagram choosing picture stuff. But we'll see. But yeah, without further ado, let's get to our first slide. Man. And I probably need to go get my water, to be honest. Because it's going to be a lot. There's going to be a lot of things, y'all. So, first slide, where are you? Okay. All right, and I am going to go get my water. So, if you guys need a little time, really quick. Give me 1 second. I hope you guys are doing well today. Okay. I have no idea where my water is. I'll just get it. Let me see here. Okay. So, y'all, mindset for the study. Okay. So, yes, the last study that we had was about Matsima. Okay. So Matsima is Satan. We made a clear distinction between Azazel and Matsima purposely because of the fact that sometimes Azazel can be mistakenly said that he's Matsima, and which is sensible because of all of the sin being ascribed to Azazel. And then we really broke open the understanding of who Matsima is and why he's doing what he does and why he's called Satan, why he is who he is. And so that was a very powerful study as well. A lot of insight. So if you guys ever need to find more information on that or watch it, obviously, it's available as usually, obviously, on the account or on YouTube, right? So that was the last study. And so this study, we have the subject of Matsima again, but more so about the man of lawlessness, okay? So the man of lawlessness we'll really be discussing. And we also talked about this court case that we have between us and Matsima, right? So us, Matsima, Satan, I'll say that if you haven't seen the Matsima study. But basically, that court case, he wants to accuse us, right? He wants to constantly accuse us, and he's building up in his scroll all the sins, all the things that man is doing on this earth, and he's constantly watching, he's constantly putting together these things to as a prosecutor in court, and we are the defendant, okay? And he's putting together these things, and we also talked about that in the last study as well. So it's like we are still trying to understand how to really win this court case. And it, oddly enough, in the scriptures, it does refer to that judgment as the great court or the actual like a court case. So it's amazing to be able to have that understanding as well, to know why what this life is about, and then really understand how this life is set up in connection with that court case. So, understanding Matsima's ordained path, like he is here to destroy us with his demons, and he is here to keep us from winning the court case, which ultimately means that we are being judged as righteous if we win this case, right? And ultimately, that's what his ordained path is. And we have to understand like, literally, that's why this is called Know Your Enemy, because we have to understand before we really get into our spiritual warfare weapons, all of these things. And honestly, I didn't even have a lot of this stuff planned. I had some things, but like the Most High has just constantly been giving us a lot of things to really work on, a lot of wisdom, a lot of things to really put in our spirit because when these weapons of warfare studies come out, the way that we pray, the way that we like move is going to be so different, and it has to be in power, that which is the goal, because that's a part of His Spirit. So we have to understand and know our enemy, right? Just like we're obviously you guys know warfare. You got to know who your enemy is. If you just go in without a plan, or even if it's sudden, right? Knowing who your enemy is and having awareness just helps you, puts you on a level where you're prepared, right? The Most High He wants warriors, right? He wants warriors, and He wants warriors to be prepared in season and out of season, right? Ecclesiastes chapter 3, there's a time to do everything, right? And then it says somewhere in the scriptures where, be prepared in season and out of season to speak the word, and to ultimately, which I'm adding on to, because there's another scripture, obviously, we understand we're in spiritual warfare. Be prepared to be in your armor every single day, no matter if you go through a lot of trials one day, or 1 week, or 1 month, or 1 year, or you don't have a lot of trials. You got to get prepared, because it's always going to be some type of trial. And that's interesting word, right, for the court case, trial, right? So that's what we covered last study. And so now let's think a lot more logically. Well, not a lot more, but let's think logically for what we're setting up for this study, okay? So we've all watched movies, right? We've all watched movies. I love watching movies. My movie watching now is more geared to like something that I can, use or understand what they're putting out. And certain things I may even enjoy. May enjoy certain movies. But typically I'm pretty much 99% of the time I'm watching movies to figure out what the new thing is, or what they're trying to put out there. And if I didn't watch a lot of movies, growing up, especially the things that you guys are going to see today in this study, I would have never been able to connect that. So thank the Most High, watching the movies. But obviously, I've told you guys too in other studies, or even if you didn't hear it, make sure you pray before movies, especially scary ones. It's not wise to always watch these scary movies, because of the fact that there are spirits behind pretty much every movie. But, obviously if you're covering yourself daily, covering your mind, things that you're watching, some people are a lot more sensitive in the spirit than others, or sensitive emotionally than others. But ultimately, what you shouldn't be watching, what we shouldn't be watching. Does that mean you don't watch any movies at all? No, but we all have a way where we need to just use that spiritual discernment. And ultimately, you don't even have to watch movies. You don't have to watch any shows, especially these shows that are out nowadays. But it's all about, more so, if you're in a research mindset, definitely watch certain movies that have certain meanings that you could put together. Especially after today, you might even find more movies, okay? Or certain shows that you can watch. But if you can't stomach it or keep watching it, definitely just stop. It's not necessary. It's definitely not necessary. But going back to the movie setup, with every movie, there's always a plot, right? If it's not a plot in there, it's really not a movie. So when you're analyzing the plot, you have to understand the conflict. So there's this phrase, obviously, like life is a movie, right? And it basically is. So understanding the conflict, we understood in the last study about Matsima, the conflict that he's bringing, or that obviously we're all in, that he instigated, right, in the Garden of Eden, and why we're even in court. You don't go to court without a conflict, right? So we have to understand the conflict of the movie, and what's the reason for even the movie itself. typically, if you're watching a movie, you probably, like, especially a new movie, you may not know the conflict, right? But for our life, especially those who are living unto the Most High, unto the Son, unto the Most High through the Son in the Spirit of truth, we have to understand our conflict, like what this is all about, right? And so that's what we've been also understanding. So let's go through a little bit of how movies are actually set up. Okay, this is kind of cool. So protagonist. Okay, so the main character of the story is the protagonist. They should be carefully crafted with a logical backstory, personal motivation, and a character arc over the course of the story. Often the story will be told from their point of view, and so it gives this example of Katniss Everdeen in the Hunger Games. If you haven't watched the Hunger Games, you're missing out. So it says from a heroine like Katniss Everdeen in the Hunger Games to a miserable wretch like, however you specifically say that name, Underground Man. The protagonist is the character the audience is most invested in. So we know that for who we serve and what our narrow path is about and who we're going towards and who we need in this walk, it's the Son, right? The S-O-N is the Son. And so I'm super excited whenever that luminary study comes out, because there's a lot of scriptures that connect the S-U-N Son to the S-O-N Son. And in Jubilees, I believe it's chapter 3, it says the Son is its light gives prosperity to, like, obviously the animals, to us, to the trees, etc. Like, beautiful light, obviously. And it also fills the moon with light, right? So just understanding that, going back to the protagonist, we are supposed to be invested into the Son of the Father, because through the Son of the Father, there's only one way to get truly to the Father, and ultimately, that's the Son. Some people don't believe that, but through your studies and everything, you're gonna find every single, even in a lot of apocryphal books, literally, there's never not a mention of the Son. Typically, sometimes you will see God in there, but once you continue to learn and understand how literally the Word is the Son, you're going to see, like, even when they put God, it's literally talking about the Son. And it's also talking about the Father a lot of times too. So you'll be able to make a lot of this, be able to distinguish that within your spiritual discernment of reading the scriptures. But the Son is fully involved with this walk. It's just the plain truth of how it is, and the simplicity of it, but it's beautiful. It's a beautiful, beautiful story. So the Son is the protagonist, okay, of this movie. So let's see some other things about how this movie plot is set up. So the antagonist, the villain of the story, is the antagonist. So think Lex Luthor, Lord Voldemort, Dr. Charles Nichols in The Fugitive. I haven't seen that movie. Note that an antagonist is not the same as an antihero like the Joker or Walter White. Antiheroes are villainous people who function in a protagonist's role. Okay, so obviously we know, just from a simple standpoint, Matsima is the antagonist. Okay, he's the enemy. That's why he's the adversary. He's the accuser. And obviously we talked about it before. He has control over demons. He's the Lord of the Spirits. That's why you see Lord Voldemort and an evil. He's controlling over evil. He's called the Prince of this world, because of the evil that he is allowed to do. And so he's basically the true antagonist. Okay. Let's see some more things. All right. So, love interest. Okay, the love interest is the protagonist's object of desire. A good love interest will be compelling and three-dimensional. The Great Gatsby, Gone with the Wind. Okay, so we understand who our protagonist is. It's the son. Now, when you go read beautiful prayer, John 17, this conversation that the son is having with the father, but it's the prayer that he's acknowledging the father and who he is. And even throughout the Gospels, he's literally saying, I am speaking nothing from myself, but all is from the Father. Right? So his love interest, quote unquote, is the Father, right? Because he is the head of all things. So ultimately, when we understand who the Son is, we understand who the Father is, like we understand who they are, obviously in the Spirit. So this is just a portion of obviously how movies are set up. But we can kind of, apply some of these things to understand what this movie is all about. Let's see here. So they have a confidant. So this type of character is the best friend or sidekick of the protagonist. Often the protagonist's goal flows through the confidant. Although not every story needs one, basically a particular famous confidant is Hamlet or Hermione in Harry Potter. Who do you think the confidants are, technically? It's us, right? We are the sons and the daughters of the protagonists. We are the servants, the warriors, the connective tissue of the protagonist. And so basically, based off of the terminology of a movie, we fit this role. We fit this description of this type of character in the movie. Okay. Let's see what else. So they have something called a deuterogonist. These characters often overlap with confidants. They're close to the main character, but the story's main plot does not directly correspond with their own character arc. So I kind of looked at this as like that parable of the wheat and tares, because Messiah says, let the tares grow with the wheats. But in the end, he's going to separate the tares from the wheats, because only the wheats is what he's gathering. And so that's why he talks about, like, I never knew you because you didn't know him for who he is and what he requires as far as gathering whose are his. Same parable with the virgins, the wise and the foolish. It's always a separation. He separates so meticulously, like in a way that we can't even, like, there's no way. It's so detailed. And you can see that separation from the very beginning, from the creation, from every little thing, and what he also mended together. Only the Father and the Son could do that. The Son was given the power and instruction to create everything through him. So that's why the Father, that beautiful relationship that they have, that we can only just try to explain, but it's just amazing, like the way that they're in unity, right? And that's outside of the Trinity doctrine in a way that they just paint it being one. They are one. However, obviously there's a separation in who they are, and just connective tissue and all of that, just the whole body in itself of how they function. So I have a study on this account too, about the Trinity doctrine and the misconceptions about it. But ultimately, going back to what this is, this could be considered like the tares, in a sense. So let's keep it going. Let's see what else is within this plot, y'all. So this is really light. So I hope y'all are enjoying this this intro so far. Tertiary characters. They populate the world of the story, but do not necessarily link to the main storyline. These minor characters serve as any number of functions and may have varying degrees of personal dynamism. They help fill the world of Peter Parker's New York. So ultimately, it's like they're just like, you can't really call them innocent bystanders, but they're bystanders, right? It's like like when you try to cast people for them being the audience or them being like the extras, what they call them. And so ultimately for our walk, it's the people technically who are reprobate or who are perishing, right? Doesn't mean that we don't care about them because we're commanded to pray for them, right? But ultimately it's like Walking Dead, right? That's the name, Walking Dead. People are alive but ultimately dead. And those walking zombies, right? They're alive, quote unquote, but they're dead. So that's what we can connect with the tertiary characters. And I think this is probably one more. So a foil character primarily exists to bring the protagonist's qualities into sharper relief. This is because the foil is effectively the opposite of the protagonist. In the Star Trek series, Captain Kirk and Mr. Spock serve as each other's foils since their personalities are so notably different. This one is, or Draco Malfoy is a foil to Harry Potter. So, you can find this obviously throughout the word, but going from our Savior versus Matsima and us being the, confidants of how we basically just saw in the story plot, you can't even really say it's Judas Iscariot, so you don't really have to put the foil. You guys can probably connect this a little bit better than I can of who would be considered a foil, but in a sense it would be Judas Iscariot because of how he came off in the sense of like being one of his disciples, and then he ends up turning on him. But ultimately, the son knew who he was and who he was prophesied to be. And, just ultimately he turned. But, in a regular movie, the foil, like somebody like Draco Malfoy in Harry Potter can end up being his friend. And obviously, we know what happened to Judas Iscariot, right? So, can't fully put the foil to him, but you guys understand, at least from a mindset purpose of what we're looking at with the foil. Oh, very nice, very nice. Pharisees and Sadducees. I like that, yeah, because it's not to say the Pharisees and Sadducees, like every single one was judged as eternal torment, where there was no forgiveness. So technically, like you're saying, Penelope, Paul technically would be, he was Saul before, and then he became Paul. So yeah, very good, you guys. He would probably be the best foil character. The easiest one to bring up. Now, Paul and Peter, they didn't have beef like that. They just the disciples weren't accepting of Paul right in the beginning because of the fact that they seen this dude, Paul or Saul, kill their brothers and sisters too, and all of a sudden he coming up like, hey, what's up, guys? And he's like a whole new creation. They're like, oh, hold up. You can't just come over here in our study session after we just seen what you did. You need to prove yourself first. So the foils are they're not bad. They may start off bad, but they also can turn good, or sometimes they're just kind of in the middle, right? So I'm just, we know what we're doing. We're just kind of giving this mindset of how this movie is set up, basically, this life movie. So let's see here. So we got a small little graph. Okay. So this is kind of a visual of how the plot is set up. Okay. So we have like a beginning. Obviously, we have an end. Okay. So the building suspense, the rising action, the new characters, conflicts, obstacles, changing goals, attitudes, ideas. It's going towards the middle, right? And the very top is the climax. It's the ultimate challenge or decision made. It says the physical, intellectual, or spiritual change or decision to not change. The character succeeds or fails. So with the protagonist, the son, has already came in our flesh, did what he did, and ultimately he already made his decision to be who he is to us, right? Our Savior. That's why we call him Yeshaya. Some people call him Yahusha, Yahawashi, or, it's a lot of names, even Jesus, because we understand who he is, and the Mashiach, right? So outside of him being the protagonist of the story, because his story, he's going to obviously return. We're going to talk about that in this study, but let's just say we put ourselves as a protagonist, obviously, and then the confidants could be our brothers and sisters, right, who are connected to us. And then we already know the antagonist literally doesn't change. It's going to still be Matsima. So when you see there at the climax, it's literally saying there's a physical, intellectual, and spiritual change. There's a decision to change or not to change, right? And then obviously as a result of the climax, it's the falling action. So it says it's the outcome of the climax, the conflict resolved, hints of future direction, mysterious characters, ideas, objects revealed, etc. And then the end is the end, right? So where would we be in this life movie, in this story, in prophecy ultimately? Where do you guys think we would be at? If you're watching this obviously later on YouTube, it's what do they call that? It's a rhetorical question. But we would be at the climax. Okay? And let me get my other slide here. We would be at the climax period. Okay? So we're approaching the climax. Okay? So that's the most intense point in the development or resolution of something. It's the culmination of the iniquity. Okay? So in 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, if my computer will work. If not, I said computer, y'all. I'm old. Laptop. Somebody like, I say computer. I'm not old. We just old school. How about that? Okay, so my laptop isn't working. I'll pull it up here. So 2 Thessalonians chapter 2. If you do not like the New Testament, it's okay. We're still going to read it here, take it into consideration. Okay, so 2 Thessalonians chapter 2. Okay, so it says verse 5 or 6. It says, "Now you know what restrains for him to be revealed in this time. For the secret of lawlessness, or the secret of iniquity, is already at work, only until he who now restrains comes out of the midst." And this scripture, it could also be talking about Matsima himself. You guys will actually find out why we're talking about saying that, because basically he's hidden right now. He could already be here, so he could be just restraining himself from obviously appearing. But also this could also mean the Most High, because he has to be removed fully out of the way to where everything is lawless. And so we'll obviously go through that and talk about that. And so ultimately we're talking about the culmination of iniquity, like literally everything that's iniquity, everything that is lawless is getting ready to just be on a level that we have never seen before. Obviously in our generation, we read a lot about it, obviously, but there's so much prophecy that is given to what's happening, and what's happening because the Son of Man is coming. It's 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, sister. That's related to Revelation 13. We're going to revisit these chapter. But yeah, you guys, we're literally we're approaching the climax. Okay? Approaching the climax. We haven't really got there yet. So, what are the end times? Okay, so the way that when I was, a lot more into Christianity, but just ultimately, the end times is always said to just be basically when we're in the climax of the movie, and that's not true. End times, it has to be a beginning, right? So typically, Revelation is always going to be like the top book people will go to understand, like, or try to seek out prophecy or just read it, which is obviously totally fair. If you ever think about it first, especially when you're starting out, you could read Daniel as like the first half and then Revelation as the second half. There's obviously way more scriptures and connections to put through, so that way you actually get a whole full, like, you get a lot more visual of what's going to happen. It's all throughout the prophets, the books of the prophets, and even in the Apocrypha. You get so much more detail to connect, and it's masterful. You get a lot of connections in the New Testament, things that you can put together with it, obviously, because you have to connect scripture with scripture, right? So the end time, when you think about who the Messiah is, he is the first. He is the first begotten of the Father. A lot of people who are into Trinity doctrine, they don't believe that he was created. We're not going to go into all of that. Like I told you guys, I have a study on it, but just, if you need that, I can always send it. But also, just ultimately looking into the Trinity doctrine, it's a lot of flaws. But ultimately what they say is, if he's created, then that means he has a beginning and an end. Well, yeah, because his end doesn't mean that he dies. Right? In the climax of Mashiach's story, he's already died, but he rose again, right? Went into the belly of Sheol, only one who could rise from the belly of Sheol. And he's the only one in our court case who is our quote-unquote lawyer, right? So with the end times, it starts from the first, whom is the Mashiach, and it ends with him. That's why he says, I am the Aleph and the Tav. I am the Alpha and the Omega. Okay? So the beginning of, quote-unquote, what we say is time starts with him. So you don't see him created in the week of creation. You can read a lot more about the week of creation in Jubilees chapter 2. So you see literally the angels are created on the very first day. Okay? So that means even the high-ranking angels are created on the very first day. In 2nd Esdras chapter 9, the Father, either the Father was speaking or the Mashiach was speaking to Esdras. Okay, and let me pull that up really quick and read it, because he talks about a time before anything was created. Okay, and he's talking about the earth specifically and the things that were going to be in the earth and the heavens. So chapter 9. And he says, 2nd Esdras, chapter 9, and he says in verse 17, right before verse 18, he says, for there was a time in the world, even then, when I was preparing for those who now live, before the world was made for them to dwell in, and then no man spoke against me. And there is not any. But now they which are created in this world that is prepared, both with a table that does not fail and a law which is unsearchable, are corrupted in their manners. Okay, so, and he says, I considered my world, and behold, it was destroyed, and my earth, and behold, it was in peril because of the plans that had come into it. And I saw and I spared them, not greatly, and I saved myself a grape out of a cluster, and a plant out of a great forest. Let the multitude which was born in vain perish then, and let my grape be saved and my plant, for I made them perfect with great labor. Okay, so that's 2nd Esdras chapter 9. So it clearly says there is a time before anything was created, specifically with the world, that obviously Abba is there. And if the Son is the first begotten of all his creation, obviously who is with him? It's the Son. In a sense, you could say day zero, or in a sense, you could say, and we're going to kind of look at this again later on down in the study, but it's like day, like dot dot, like it doesn't have a number. Time of how we see it as mankind is totally different in the heavens. Actually, I think it's in Peter when it says like a day with the Most High is like, or a day to the Most High is like 1,000 years. You know, so it's something like that to where we do see there is an allotted period of time that starts with the Mashiach and it ends with the Mashiach. And we're going to go over this later in another study. But basically, when you look at creation, you literally see there's 7 days. So if you don't know about the 8th day, we're gonna get a study on that. It's gonna be like amazing. But the 8th day is so important. Okay, the 7th and the 8th day, even in that prayer that the Mashiach says, and he's giving glory to the Father in John 17. Even with the 7th and 8th day, the 8th day fully, which is basically after the 1,000-year reign, when the Son, after he comes here and he puts everything under his feet, he spends 1,000 years on earth reigning as king, and basically, you know, it's a lot of beautiful things with that. And then 7 plus 1 equals 8. And so we're actually able to be in the presence of the Father fully. Okay, so you can read more about that in Revelation chapter 19 through basically 22. Talks about the New Jerusalem, New Earth, all these different things. Okay, so that's just like a little preview when we get there. But ultimately, the end times, it starts first with the Mashiach, and then it's going to end with the Mashiach. Okay, that's why it says the Aleph and the Tav, the beginning and the end. I am the first and I am the last. Okay, and we're going to review that later on down. And let me just, I'm supposed to read Revelation 22. See, it's good. I got these slides here. So it says, Revelation 22, verse 10, starting at verse 10. And he said to me, he's talking to John. This is the Mashiach talking, okay? It says, do not seal the words of the prophecy of this book, because the time is near. He who does wrong, let him do more wrong. He who is filthy, let him be more filthy. He who is righteous, let him be more righteous. He who is set apart, let him be more set apart. And see, I am coming speedily, and my reward is with me to give to each according to his work. I am the Aleph and the Tav, the beginning and the end, and the first and the last. Clear as day, y'all. Blessed are those doing his commandments, so that the authority shall be theirs unto the tree of life, and to enter through the gates into the city. But outside are the dogs and those who enchant with drugs, those who whore, those and the murderers and the idolaters, and all who love and do falsehood. I, Yeshua HaMashiach, have sent my messenger to witness to you these matters in the assemblies. I am the root and the offspring of David, the bright and morning star. And the Spirit and the bride say, come. He who hears, let him say, come. He who thirsts, come forth, and he who desire it, take the water of life without pain. For I witness to everyone, hearing the words of the prophecy of this book and other prophecies in other books. If anyone adds to them, the Father shall add to him the plagues that are written in this book. And if anyone takes away from the words of the book of this prophecy, the Father shall take away his part from the book of life and out of the set apart spirit which are written in this book. He that bears witness of these matters says, yes, I am coming speedily. Amen. Yes, come, Master Yeshua HaMashiach. The favor of our Master Yeshua HaMashiach, the Mashiach, be with the set apart ones. Amen. Okay, so that was Revelation 22, 10 through 21. Clear as day, you guys. The first and the last. If we don't have the Mashiach, if we don't have the Son, we don't have anything. There's no time. It doesn't start. Okay, so the end times doesn't just start when calamity hits. Okay, and even when you want to get a little bit deeper, when the Mashiach was born in our flesh, right? When he's born as a baby, that is the clearest marker for the end. Okay, that's the clearest marker from the to the end, because it's like we talked about in how the movie is set up. It's getting into its rising action, and then right at that climax, especially when the Mashiach dies and he's crucified and he rises again, then there's a falling action to where basically when he returns, all of that he's taken upon himself because he's going to put everything under his feet. So the resolution is literally he gets here on the seventh day, bang. And yeah, so that's going to be a study for later, y'all. I know y'all was like, on the seventh day, but yes, on the seventh day, all right? I can't wait to get to that study. Oh my goodness. I can't wait. I cannot wait. Oh my gosh. All right, so do we have the right mindset for this study now? Okay? It's going to get heavy from here. Man, I might even have to take a little restroom break real quick, just because once I start, I cannot stop. All right? So give me like 1 minute. I wasn't planning on taking a restroom break, but give me like 1 minute. Prepare your hearts and your minds for this, okay? Get your snacks. If you need snacks, if you don't, you're probably not going to need them. But I will be right back, all right? All right. Are you all ready? Okay. Okay, let's see what is next. All right, so we got our mindset. Okay, so let's see here. Okay, so next slide. Yeah, sister, appreciate the support for sure. But man, I'm not even being dramatic at all, but like I think y'all gonna really see, and I mean you guys are gonna have a lot of material too. Obviously, always add to this to things that are presented in studies. And this one isn't even super deep. I'm gonna have to do another separate portion of this, I'll talk about why. And it might not even just be me actually, but you know, it's going to be so much that you can literally use, especially in a practical sense for those even that aren't in our walk. Okay, so you literally will have material to show literally what's coming, and it might help somebody. It might help someone really be like, man, only way I can do this and really live this life, I have to choose the Mashiach. Like I have to choose the Son. I have to choose the Son. I have to understand who the Son is, the Father is, and the Spirit, etc., etc. Okay. So man, let's get started. Thank you, Abba. All right, so Matsema's host. We talked about in the last study about Matsema, and we talked about the breakdown of the Garden of Eden and actually who the serpent was, that he, even through the life of Adam and Eve, the Greek version, and through the other books as well, the first book of Adam and Eve and the second book of Adam and Eve, you see Satan himself obviously there. But the serpent, the actual beast, was used by Matsima. It also says in Enoch that there's another angel who's over the serpents, things of that nature. So we got a lot of confirmation in that study and the scripture references that go about it, that Matsima, obviously, at the end of the day, he uses hosts. Okay, so he was a high-ranking angel. He was, and obviously, we talked about how he rebelled and how he chose to not serve under the Most High, and what his contention was fully, that basically started it all, was that the Most High was going to make us, and he was given beauty beyond imagine. He was the most beautiful, and he was given a job to cover. Okay, he's a covering cherub, covering high-ranking angel, and ultimately he was supposed to be covering us, especially in the Garden of Eden. And he didn't like his job. Basically, he didn't think that he should be who he was because of how beautiful he was. And ultimately, he heard the plans that was coming in. Especially, you remember, the angels are created on the first day. So then man is created, man, I'm sorry, I totally forgot. Man is created, on the fifth day or sixth day? I think it was sixth day, because the animals were created on the fifth day. And man is created on the sixth day, I think. Let me make sure. Got to remember that better. You guys can always correct me too. Y'all can help me out. Yep. Sixth day. Be fruitful. Yeah. So man was created on the sixth day. Okay. And then there was rest on the seventh. Okay. So Matsima knew that man was going to be created and that he was going to have to cover man, because ultimately the Son is created before creation, right? First begotten. And ultimately he comes down later on in the story, in the plot, and dies in our flesh, perfect. Still has to go to Sheol because of the fact that's where all the dead go. But he rises out of Sheol, taking the keys of death from Satan himself, from Matsima himself, and ultimately fully laying out that path for us to walk in. The path was always walked, was always laid out, obviously in the Old Testament. He's always been the Savior. He's always been who he is, but ultimately to save Israel, right? He says, I came for the lost sheep of Israel. Because when you really read and you see all the stuff that was going on, Matsima tried to bury Israel to the point where when they're scattered and all these things are happening, it's almost like there's no reconciliation. It's like there's no, where's the light at? It's so dark. It's like we don't have any light. And so that's why he is truly the light of the world. And it's not just for Israel that he made this path for. It's for those who are outside of Israel, just like a lot of other nations or other people in Egypt ends up going out of Egypt with Israel, right? And through that crossing path, through the Red Sea, when it was split apart, it's so much symbolism that we're connecting spiritually and that the scriptures speak on. So it was also available for those who aren't, quote unquote, blood Israel, right? So what we're seeing is, I'm sorry, we're looking outside the window. Where am I at, you guys? So what we're seeing is that man was created, and ultimately, because we have to go through the Son, once we get our heavenly body, we're going to be above the angels, okay? Yeshua was made lower. This is what Hebrews talks about, chapter 1 and chapter 2. The Son, Mashiach, was made lower than the angels for a little while, okay? his heavenly body was already there in the beginning. Okay, so when you read scripture and you see how the prophets saw the Messiah, they saw the Father. 99, always when they see the Father, he doesn't have a face. He's like, they can't even fathom looking at him. Even if the Mashiach, when they see the Mashiach in their visions, they can barely even look at him too. But he's actually, the Father allowed us to still see the Son because he is the literal image of the Father. So in Enoch, when he sees the Son, like his flesh is dissolved. Like he's obviously in the spirit or in the vision, but like spiritually, like his flesh dissolves because he's looking at the Son, and it's such a beautiful moment. He's talking about the Son in so many chapters. He's literally showing the authority, the kingship of the Son. Enoch, okay? And so you see that in all scripture, and a lot of scriptures, a lot of prophecy, a lot of visions. So ultimately, we are going through the Son, okay? That's the only way. And so Matsima knew that we would be above the angels for those who are just as righteous, and we get our heavenly body. We're going to be above them. Now, there's no competition. It's not because we're above them, we rule over them, or whatever. We'll stand side by side serving the Most High, the Father and the Son, being with them when everything is fully complete. We're standing side by side. It's just an elevated status because of who we've gone through, and that's what the Son has ultimately provided for us as well. Those who passed away, even those who were translated up, who didn't experience death, like Enoch, Elijah, Baruch, Esdras, like these different people still haven't received their heavenly body, but they are in heaven, right? Typically, you'll find people will limit the spiritual aspect and the power involved with all of this, and they'll try to put it in a box and try to explain it in a certain way. But we only can read the scriptures and connect it very well, but their body is preserved in heaven. Like, you can't explain that to the detail and say how it's preserved. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's through the power of the Most High, through the power of the Son. Like, so they are preserved. Like, and then those who have already passed, Enoch talks about a lot of this. Even those who are righteous, who have been judged as righteous, when they have passed, they're sitting in a place in Sheol, which is a place of the dead, but they are in Abraham's bosom, / the righteous place, okay? Waiting quietly, waiting for their heavenly body, okay? And obviously on the opposite side, those are the ones who are condemned. Some have already went into eternal torment, okay? So that is in 2nd Esdras chapter 7. If you try to look that up in the KJV, you will not find the lost, quote-unquote, lost scriptures, which is basically from like 76 through like 120, because they tried to omit those things. Crazy. But you find out basically what happens after we die. Okay? So Matsima knew that. Okay? So he knew what was supposed to be, what is for man. So he has to use host. Okay? So some of the hosts that we see in the word, obviously we said the serpent, Cain was used. Matsima is very choosy with his hosts. Him specifically hosting someone. You guys know that scripture in Ephesians chapter 4. There's we don't war against flesh and blood, but against the principalities, against spirits or rulers, etc. So when there's a high-ranking king, best believe he's going to be behind that one. In the Testament of Job, it don't even obviously. Oh yeah, I'm sorry. Not even does it have to be a high-ranking person. Depending on who he's talking to or trying to beguile in the word. We just read the Testament of Job the other day in the last study, and Job saw Satan behind his own wife trying to break him down, and he called Satan out and he said, "Why are you hiding behind something? Why are you hiding behind something? Reveal yourself." And Satan actually was afraid. He had to scurry off because Job couldn't be broken. No matter what he was doing, Job could not be broken. and he ran away. He was embarrassed. He was in shame. But again, Matsima is behind someone. Okay, he needs a cover, so he needs a host. Okay, so Nimrod was one of his hosts. King of Golan, Title, was one of his hosts. You'll read that. That's when Abraham was a bad man, but he went to war, and there was like a bunch of kings and things like that. And this king, Golan Title, of Golan, named Title, basically was over all of those kings at one point. And Abraham obviously got the victory. But it's interesting when you connect that word title, like there's literally like what the elite put together. They have this music stream of music or whatever called Title. It's just kind of interesting. It's not by accident, of course. So other notable hosts that the Matsima has used: Pharaoh. You can read more detail about Matsima being involved in Jubilees. Literally uses his exact name. And then it says like he pushed Pharaoh to chase after Israel to destroy them, basically. Just a summary. Also in Jasher, okay? Nebuchadnezzar, king of Tyre. With Nebuchadnezzar, yes, you will see in Jeremiah too, the Most High calls Nebuchadnezzar his sword, because he was obviously gonna discipline Israel. But even with that being said, we know that Matsima has his job. He has his given authority. He has his instructions when the Most High says he has to do something or is allowed to do something, right? So Nebuchadnezzar was one of the hosts of Matsima. The king of Tyre, you see that a lot in Ezekiel especially. We talked about that before, where through Ezekiel, the Most High is speaking directly to the king of Tyre, and then he's speaking behind to Satan directly behind the king of Tyre. Okay, King Herod, he was obviously one of the kings that tried to destroy or kill all the Hebrew babies. You can read a lot more of that, obviously in the regular canon in Exodus, and then you also read it in I think was it Jasher, where it talks about how the Most High saved a lot of the Hebrew babies. So that's a beautiful portion of that too. Judas Iscariot, in the Gospels, it does say that Matsima, literally right at the Last Supper, quote unquote, when it was time for Judas Iscariot to get up and start the process of the Mashiach, the Christ, crucifixion, basically Matsima entered into him. And obviously, the Mashiach, seeing spiritually, he was like, go ahead and do what you got to do. Told him to go start your process, and Matsima didn't waste no time. He got up, did what he was told, and it started the process. And Antiochus Epiphanes, okay, that's one name that you're going to remember today. You find him in First Maccabees, more so. He's prophesied about in the book of Daniel as well, just not his name fully. He is one of the kings of, you could basically say, Rome, but his story is really detailed, or what he was involved in with Israel in First Maccabees, Second Maccabees, a little bit of Third Maccabees. And actually Fourth Maccabees too. We did a study about that on reasoning and how he was trying to get these people to Israel and these certain people to eat swine and to basically ultimately diverge away from the commandments, okay? So when you read that Fourth Maccabees, and we're going to kind of talk about that a little bit, it's going to come up. But yes, he was a very horrible king. He set a lot in motion as far as turning Israel away from the Most High and from the commandments and things of that nature. First Maccabees is no joke. And it starts off right off the bat from those first two chapters. It's crazy. It don't waste no time. So these are just some of the hosts, right? You can find a lot more the more you read. But we get to the last full embodiment of who Matsima is and the host that he chooses, okay, which is called the man of lawlessness, or the man of the last empire of the world, or the man of the world, okay? So this is fully his last host who is coming. He could already be here, but this is who he's going to be using, this person, in the very, very end, like right before he's chained up, okay? So I hope that was pretty understandable. He has to use a host, all right? And he's going to use another host. Let's see here. What's next, you guys? So, if you guys have the Apocalypse of Elijah open, please open that. You can research it real quick if you don't have it. Apocalypse of Elijah, all right? We're taking a lot from this book, okay? But a little intro into Elijah. You can find information on him in 1 Kings 17 through 19 and 2 Kings 1 through 2 in the regular canon. Really good, awesome read, obviously. And he was a prophet. A type of prophet he was is a seer, which can see in the spirit realm, see in the physical realm. He was blessed to do signs and wonders in the spirit. One of his notable healings that he did was he actually laid on a dead body and the body revived. Like, amazing stuff that he was able to do in the spirit, his ordained path. And he also was a priest. So typically, if you haven't watched or saw my story that I put together the other day about Enoch's path, one of the portions was about there's an occurrence with the king-priest connection. Okay, so Enoch also was like, he was like a king-priest. Samuel had the king-priest connection. So you're going to see, even with David, he was a king, but he led the priest. He made sure they were together. He also had a prophet on his side. So it's a lot of things you'll really see and note how it's all set up. And then obviously, you guys know Mashiach, right? When you read Hebrews, you understand the king-priest relationship. That Melchizedek study is coming after this, I believe. So we'll really see a lot of detail with that king-priest relationship, okay? But that's who Elijah was. And there's this record called Lives of the Prophets, okay? And basically it says, I'll read it really quick. And it's very short. It's gonna talk about basically all these prophets, and it's given like this short detail of the lives of the prophets, or even like where they come from, okay? So with Elijah, it says, he was a Tishbite from the land of the Arabs, of the family of Aaron. So Aaron was a high priest. He was the brother of Moses. It says, residing in Gilead, because Tishbe had been assigned to the priest. At the time of his birth, his father, Shobach, saw how certain men of shining white appearance addressed the baby, and that they wrapped him in swaddling clothes of fire and gave him a flame of fire to eat. When he went and reported this in Jerusalem, the oracle gave answer. It says, do not fear, for his dwelling will be light, and his word revelation, and he will judge Israel with sword and with fire. Okay, so this isn't, even at the first read, it's like he was wrapped in clothes of fire and given a flame to eat. What? Obviously, we can find connections like this in the scriptures. Okay, so in 2nd Esdras, chapter 14, verse 38, this is what Esdras says. He says, and it came to pass on the next day, behold, a voice called me, saying, Ezra, open your mouth and drink what I give you to drink. Then I opened my mouth, and behold, there was given to me a full cup, which was full as it were with water, but the color of it was like fire, And I took it and drank, and when I had drunk of it, my heart uttered understanding, and wisdom grew in my breast, for my spirit retained its memory, and my mouth was open and no longer shut. And the Most High gave understanding to the 5 men that were with him, and they wrote by course the things that were told to them in characters which they did not even know. And they sat for 40 days. 40 days, y'all. Now they wrote in the daytime, and at night they ate bread, symbolic, who is the bread of life. As for me, I spoke in the day, and I did not hold my tongue by night. So, fire. So in 40 days, 94 scrolls were written. And it came to pass when the 40 days were fulfilled, that the Most High spoke to me, saying, the first that you have written, publish openly, and let the worthy and unworthy read it, but keep the 70 last, that you may deliver them to such as are wise among your people. For in them is the spring of understanding, the fountain of wisdom, and the stream of knowledge. And I did so. Sheesh. So one thing about, like, when you see, like, it says, like, all these books that he wrote, sometimes it could be like, just, let's just say, with Ezra, how they did it initially, especially like in Latin, I think, or whatever, like how they connect into these codexes, the certain codexes. It's like Nehemiah, and you got first Ezra, second Ezra, third Ezra, but it's really like, they'll say Nehemiah is first Ezra, and then second Ezra, third, and fourth Ezra. Okay, so in Esdras, I'm reading from second Esdras, that's technically fourth Ezra. Okay, so something to think about, but also those other scrolls could be obviously not just the regular one that's in a regular Protestant canon, where you'll see just Ezra, right? You just see Nehemiah. When you understand more, you see like, oh, that's first Ezra and then second Ezra, right? And so that could be obviously what we understand. There's a lot of prophecy in this second Ezra's book, a lot of things that you just don't find in the regular canon, because you have to read outside of the regular canon, because it all connects, it's supposed to connect together. But obviously it's scattered for a reason, right? But you see here, basically going back to the flame, the fire that was put in his mouth is not far away at all from what Elijah was given as a baby. Okay. Who else was born? Sorry, not Moses. Noah is recorded as being born with full of light and things like that. So this stuff is not far off, you guys, at all. It's not off at all. So yes, Elijah was given a flame of fire to eat from the angels. And we know why. Because he was going to judge Israel with sword and fire. Okay? And Isaiah's tongue touched with the coal of fire to cleanse him? Absolutely, sister. Very good. See? So, you know, it's a lot of things that's just so connected. And that is the spirit of the living Almighty Father. That's the spirit he's given us. Okay? He's embedded it into his son first, and that's why his son is literally directly connected to wisdom. And it says literally in Isaiah chapter 11, 1 through 5, we read that so many times, but in the Son dwells the spirit of wisdom, the spirit of knowledge, the spirit of counsel, the spirit of power, the spirit of understanding. Righteousness flows from that spirit. So we've literally read that so many times, but it's something to keep in mind, right? So what else about Elijah? So Mark chapter 9, verse 4 says here, he was mentioned. All right, so in they call it the transfiguration of the Mashiach, or the transfiguration of Jesus, or Yasha, whom we call him. It says, there appeared before, this is when basically the Messiah turns into like a different form, like in the spirit realm. Okay, so he's like showing his disciples almost like basically like who he is in the spirit, even though he didn't have his heavenly body. But it's like it's a moment in time. That's why they call it this transfiguration. But basically who appeared before him in the spirit was Elijah and Moses. And they were sitting there just talking with the Son. Just talking. Just talking to him, conversation, a whole conversation. Um, just amazing. And we also have a connection to that. We literally just read this in the last study. But the apocalypse of, was it? It's not Zechariah. I'm sorry. Oh, thank you, brother. I appreciate you, man. If we don't go about this in true meekness, and what are we really doing, right? Like this is the word we're talking about. This is literally my life, my everything. So I really appreciate y'all, and all praises to the Most High. Still got work to do, right? But I really appreciate that. So in the Revelation of Zephaniah, chapter 8, verse 4, it says, so Zephaniah, basically he was seeing the heavens, he was seeing hell. So he says, verse 4, that the angel that was talking to him, that basically told him, like, you're going to be in the scroll of the living. It says that the angel, he says, he ran to all the righteous ones, namely Abraham and Isaac and Jacob and Enoch and Elijah and David. He spoke with them as a friend to friends, speaking with one another. This is what Zephaniah sees. So it's not Zechariah, y'all. It's Zephaniah. It's a revelation of Zephaniah. This is what he sees in the spirit realm. Enoch even sees that there are the place of the righteous. There are a lot of people in a certain direction in the spirit realm, like in the heavens, the mountains. He talks about the place of righteousness. There's actually people praying in the place of righteousness in these mountains, where like the tree of life is, etc., tree of wisdom. They're praying, they're interceding for us. So Enoch actually records that. Okay, but we obviously see Elijah is here spoken about, and he was one of the ones that was taken up alive. Okay, James 5:17. He says, Elijah was a human being even as we are. He prayed earnestly that it would not rain, and it did not rain on the land for 3.5 years. 3.5 years. So it's awesome. James says in chapter 5, verse 16, he says, confess your faults to one another and pray for one another that ye may be healed. The effectual, fervent, passionate prayer of a righteous man avails much. It produces much. So if you don't get no motivation to truly pray, it don't have to just be, obviously, you want rain to stop on the land for 3.5 years. That's not the goal. But you know who hears you, right? So something like this, to see a man, as we are, taken up, in the flesh still, without experiencing death, he was given the Spirit and walked in his ordained path. Okay? And he's called the righteous one. He's also another righteous one, obviously, that we read in Revelation of Zephaniah. And Elijah is one of the two witnesses. We are going to talk about that a little bit later. Y'all, this is so light right now. So light right now. Like right after this portion, like it's gonna get nuts. I don't think y'all really like ready, but we already here. Don't leave. No, don't leave. So in Malachi chapter 4, Elijah is spoken of verbatim. It says, I will send you the prophet Elijah to you before that great and dreadful day of the Mashiach when he comes. He will turn the hearts of the parents to their children and the hearts of the children to their parents, or else I will come and strike the land with total destruction. So he said, literally, Messiah said, I'm going to send Elijah. Okay? And Malachi that was Malachi chapter 4. Zechariah chapter 4. Zechariah, is it chapter 4? Yeah, Zechariah chapter 4. It talks about these two lampstands, okay? So, verse 11, it says that Zechariah asks the angel, what are these two olive trees on the right and the left of the lampstand? And what are these two olive branches beside the gold pipes that pour out golden oil? The oil also represents the fire that was put in Elijah's mouth, y'all. Spirit. It's a lot of connections with the oil, right? That we've tried to do. We've done some studies on that, obviously. But verse 13, he says, he replied, do you not know what these are? He says, no, my Lord, in this translation. And, he's respecting the angel. I said, he says, verse 14, he says, so he said, these are the two who are anointed to serve the Mashiach of all the earth. Okay? So the olive branches or the olive trees by the menorah that's in the heavens, the lampstands, right? So you go directly to Revelation chapter 11. All right? Typically, most people will hear about the two witnesses in Revelation chapter 11, which is totally understandable because the way that these two witnesses are talked about is obviously very detailed. So, verse 3 of chapter 11 of Revelation, it says, I will appoint my two witnesses, and they will prophesy for 1,260 days clothed in sackcloth. They are the two olive trees and the two lampstands, and they stand before the Mashiach of the earth. Perfect connection, obviously, to Zechariah, right? And it says, if anyone tries to harm them, fire comes from their mouths and devours their enemies. This is how anyone who wants to harm them must die. They have power to shut up the heavens so that it will not rain during the time they are prophesying, and they have power to turn the waters into blood and to strike the earth with every kind of plague as often as they want. So we are going to talk about those two witnesses very soon, okay? Because we already got one witness out of the way and who we understand who it is. Some people say, oh, well, it could be John the Baptist. In the scriptures, it says that John the Baptist, he had the spirit of Elijah, right? The spirit of Elijah isn't itself. It's not like it's one thing, because you have to say the spirit of David, spirit of whatever, spirit of Enoch. But the spirit of Elijah, obviously, we literally have a record of where that fire came from. It's from the Mashiach, from the Father. The Father gave him his spirit, his fire. So John the Baptist was walking in that same fire. We read it verbatim in who he is. And it's crazy, people will give credence to John the Baptist and his role, but the Mashiach's role is always going to be diminished, okay? And we're going to see exactly also why in a little sense. But ultimately, John the Baptist isn't returning. He got his head cut off by King Herod, I believe. And so he actually died to death. Elijah has not died. Okay, he's obviously alive in the heavens. Okay, exactly. It's appointed unto man once to die, and that's literally the same for Christ, right? He died one time, and it's interesting when you connect it to the Day of Atonement. It happens once a year. Okay, and Jubilees chapter 5, it also talks about once a year there would be an atonement for them, etc., etc. So it's just a lot of connections. But the Mashiach is literally the Son, Yasha, or whoever you call him, Messiah Yasha. That's how I say it, because Messiah is the anointed one. He's the anointed one. He's the chosen. He's the elect one. And he is the Savior. Okay, so I just put that noun and the verb together. And he is the only one who comes out of the belly of Sheol. The only one. He is the perfect sacrifice. I'm not gonna go super down that line, but I'm on fire for my Mashiach. On fire for him. All right. Yes. Okay. So this is who Elijah is. All right? Give him some respect. All right? So please have out your apocalypse of Elijah, because he also has written. Now it's awesome. We have to give credit to who Elijah is, because when we read this revelation of Elijah, a lot of times people will kind of put these books to the side and they won't give it credence, right? Because of the fact that it's not in a regular canon, or it was written at this time or whatever. Like when you read stuff, obviously everything has to connect together. Start at your foundations of the regular canon. That's really what it's for. And then you connect all the apocryphal scriptures together. Okay. So Elijah, he writes us something. He's going to return. He writes us something for us to know in the times that he returns. It just simply makes sense, right? It just simply makes sense why he would write this for us. It makes sense. Okay. So we're going to read that. We're going to read some portions of it. We're going to break this down. Y'all, like literally it's about to go real. It's about to get very, very deep. And so please be patient with me with all these screenshots that's getting ready to come. Cause it gets deep. Okay. And I'm probably going to end up needing a water break. I mean, restroom break again, because drink a lot of water. I can't let my voice die, you know. I gotta speak. Man. Okay, so the chapter 1. I'm gonna read a little bit from chapter 1. I always remember this chapter as something about the pure fast. Okay, it's so key. I've talked about this before, but if you ever want more information on the pure fast, like if you need like some type of like more understanding, or you know, anything that I could provide for you, of course, obviously I will give you my experience and, you know, things that I do, or whatever the case is, that's obviously connected to the word, and just, you know, real raw like testimony. But ultimately I'm just going to read a little bit throughout this chapter. Then I'm going to tell you guys what chapter 2 is about, because I'm not going to read that. And yeah, all right. So chapter 1, it says, the word of the Most High came to me, saying, Son of man, say to this people, why do you add sins to your sins and anger the Most High, Father who created you? Don't love the world or the things which are in the world, for the boasting of the world and its destruction belong to the devil, Matsimo. Remember that in the Most High of glory, or even it's talking about the Mashiach of glory, who is on the right hand of the Father, it says, who created everything, had mercy on you so that he might save us from the captivity of this age. For many times the devil desired not to let the sun rise above the earth, and not to let the earth yield fruit. Okay, I'm going to stop really quick just so I can connect this with you guys. Jubilees chapter 2. Jubilees chapter 2. And so it goes through that creation week. And so on the 4th day, we know he created the sun and the moon. Okay. Now, this is just me inserting this really quick just for you to consider. Just because the sun and the moon were created doesn't mean that the moon had to be full. Okay. Just want you guys to make sure you look into that. When you look at the first laws of the luminaries, when you go read in Enoch, you guys can actually connect those first ways that how the sun and the moon rise together. You can connect it with the actual creation week. Okay, but it has to be divided correctly. All right, so please make sure you kind of look at that. But, or you do look at that. So on that 4th day, it says in Jubilees chapter 3, where is it? Oh, it says, verse 9, the Most High appointed the sun to be a great sign on the earth for days, and for Shabbats, and for months, and for feasts, and for years, and for Shabbats of years, and for Jubilees, and for all seasons of the years. It divides the light from the darkness, and for prosperity, that all things may prosper which shoot and grow on the earth. So the next time you go outside and you're enjoying some sun, like, think about this scripture that he's, you know, this sunlight. It's not just for tans, right? But it's for your prosperity. It's for things to shoot and grow. And, if the sun wasn't here, we wouldn't have a lot of stuff to grow. And remember earlier we talked about, go ahead and obviously you guys find these scripture connections with the S-U-N sun to the S-O-N sun. So many connections. And you think about the luminaries and you read it, it all has to go back to him. It all has to connect to him. Just beautiful in itself, right? It's not just about observing and just kind of not having these things in mind. But, when that study comes out, it's going to be amazing too. But this is what the sun is for. So going back to chapter 1 of Elijah, literally it says the devil desired not to let the sun rise above the earth because he knows what it's for, and not to let the earth yield fruit, since he desires to consume men like a fire, which rages in stubble, and he desires to swallow them like water. This is Matsima, y'all. He hates us. He hates us. We talked about that in the last study. Why he wanted the demons, because he wanted to utilize his will through the demons to attack us that do not sleep day and night. We have another, we got another Know Your Enemy coming eventually that goes really into detail about basically demons, angels and demons. That's going to be pretty heavy, but that's for later. Okay, but that is coming. But ultimately, it says what it says. It's what he desires. He hates us. He wants to destroy us. So verse 5, it says, therefore, on account of this, the Most High, the Father, had mercy on us, and he sent his Son to the world so that he might save us from the captivity. He did not inform a messenger or a chief messenger or any principality when he was about to come to us, but he changed himself to be like a man when he was about to come to us so that he might save us. Direct connection to Hebrews chapter 1 and 2. Therefore, become sons to him and daughters to him, since he is a father to you. Now, you guys have heard Emmanuel, right? That is his Hebraic name. Look into the details of the etymology of it. But typically, if you ever heard Emmanuel, they'll say God with us, right? One of my favorite songs from, I know, was it Fred Hammond? He's not the same dude he used to be, unfortunately, just like Kirk Franklin. I think they all turned. But Bread of Life, I think that's my favorite song. I love that song. But he is the living word. What else? Let me see. Oh, he say God with us. He says God with us, the living truth, a holy king, something like that. I'm not the greatest with lyrics. But he says God with us. Okay, so Emmanuel, that's what typically will always be connected with the phrase God with us, because the Mashiach is seen as a God. Now, you get into this Hebrew community and it distorts that a lot, but for a good reason, because we know the Trinity doctrine has a lot of flaws, right? But ultimately, as Elijah is saying, he says, become sons to the Son, to the Mashiach, since he is a father to you. When you go read John chapter 17, Mashiach says that I came in your name, Father. So if you use, for example, a haya or a heye, or you say haya, it means to create. It is a verb. You can use a verb to personify the names of the Father and the Son. The haya name is also directly connected to the Son. When you read the Sefer, it will say Yahuwah, right? Yahuwah, when you actually click on it, if you have the app, it says something about the one, it's either saying something about it was pierced or something like that. But you can even go on the Sefer.com and actually read why they put certain names to it. But in its, in like the pictograms of the name Yahuwah, it's an ox, and it has something about like let me make sure I pull it up real quick. I don't know if I'm going to find it, but oh, yeah, I'm going to go ahead and just show it real quick. How do I switch this? Let me see. Oh, there it is. Okay. So you'll see literally this is supposedly Yahuwah, the pictogram of it. And it says, behold, nail, behold, hand. That's one of the pictograms of it. But obviously research that. But we know literally who was nailed to the stake. The Son. Okay? The Son. I gotta, let me see. Okay, there it is. So the Son, okay? So it's very interesting when you look at these things and you see the Son came in his Father's name, right? You start looking at these different things and you see this community, not just this community, but overall. Some have named him Jesus, et cetera, et cetera. And then you have, obviously, people say, well, Yahweh or the YHWH connected to the Tetragrammaton and say that's false. That is one of the most ancient connections that's in a lot of ancient scrolls that were found in either the Dead Sea Scrolls or even go look up Eblanites. They have a bunch of tablets, thousands of it, that supposedly even that language from the Eblanites, it also connects to Hebrew, but supposedly it's older than Hebrew. So it's a lot of stuff that we got to relearn or really understand and really connect, you guys, because we got this names issue, and that's going to have to be a study too. And you see a lot of just people saying, well, you can't say this, you can't say that, or you got this community that uses this specific name and that whatever. So it's just real interesting, y'all. It's very interesting. So just going back, basically, it says, if you therefore become sons to him, since he is a father to you, it's just ultimately saying because the Son came in the Father's name and it's in the Father, that literally the Son is a God to us. It doesn't take out the Father at all. But outside of that, even you see scriptures that the Son literally doesn't even want us to call him master, that he is friends of us, but he's also the bridegroom. Even people have distorted what the bridegroom means. There's threefold connection between the bride being Jerusalem, New Jerusalem, and the land itself that was promised to Abraham and his people. Okay, you can literally connect all these little dots together that connect to the bridegroom. Okay, so and his bride. Okay, so that's why it also says that he's Ishi. It says in the days coming, as we are learning more, we'll get comfortable knowing that he is Ishi, which means my husband. It means the bridegroom, because we know in the marriage supper of the Lamb that we are connecting to him. We are getting fully connected to him. He's the one bringing our heavenly body. So the Father, when we fully get to him on the 8th day, after the 1,000 years is over with the Mashiach reigning as king on earth, we finally get to be in his presence, but he is so set apart. It's not the fact that the Mashiach isn't set apart, but you have to understand the Father. He literally tells us, I believe it's in Deuteronomy, that if any man looks at him, they will not live. So he, in his mercy, allows us to be able to look unto the Son, Mashiach, who is literally the direct image of him. So that beautiful relationship, like it's like we distort so much, we take so much away from it. We're not enjoying and understanding more that we can understand. So just for you guys to just have that to be able to look on and understand, like, let's we got to do better, right? Understand and add more and relearn and read these scriptures and divide it correctly. That's what I'm here for too. Obviously, like, to help divide it correctly and to really erase a lot of misconceptions, not erase, but obviously through his spirit, really help set the foundation of where we're actually supposed to be walking. All right. Yeah, man, it's nuts. I'm seeing you guys' comments. We'll never know everything about everything, even our spouses, so we can never fully know the most high because we only know in part. Exactly. So we can literally only through his spirit we can even try to understand his wisdom. Solomon himself said he knew that the only thing on earth was the best thing to do was to marry wisdom. So he sought out wisdom, and that's why he asked for it, right? Even Elisha, when Elijah left, Elisha was his prodigy. So when Elisha is left by himself and Elijah leaves, he asks for a double portion of Elijah's spirit, because he's like, if I'm next up in line right now, I need to make sure I do it the right way. I need a double portion. And he received it. I need a double portion of that fire that you gave to Elijah when he was born. You know what I'm saying? So it's so much, y'all. Like, we take away so much from this word, and it's so unfortunate. But like I said, I ride for my Mashiach, for the Father. Y'all have to understand these times, especially after today. Like, y'all gotta just stay fired up and continue to read and do not be deceived. And even if you are deceived a little bit or you don't have all the information, obviously we don't have all the information, but divide it correctly and be patient. Be patient with yourself, because the Spirit is patient. The Most High is patient, merciful. Okay? Why would you not do that to yourself? Love your neighbor as yourself. So if you can't be patient with yourself, you're not going to be patient with others. You know? And only literally the merciful can see the Son, can see the Father. Matthew 5, y'all. Man. So wait, give me 1 second, y'all. I need to get my charger. Sorry, y'all. I'm getting my charger. All right, y'all. Sorry about that. Trying to find an outlet over here. Give me 1 second. Phone will be dying so fast when you're on live. But yeah, very, very good comments, y'all. Like, yes, sir, brother. Awesome. Yes, all praises to the Most High, y'all. We got to keep learning, and you only learn more when you're in true meekness. True meekness. Be careful how you speak about this word. Be careful. You're talking about a living word, so be careful. Be careful. These things are written down. We talk with real slick or not careful about this word. Man, you don't know when your end is. So why even, that's that year fear. Find yourself not talking about this word in its true honor and its true reverence. Like, you gotta, like, literally be quiet for a little bit and, take time and really, really just take time. Take time and understand more and just grow and then come out. Like, better to be patient than sit there and be rash. I'm sure that's a proverb, especially in Sirach. I know that's for sure. Okay, so let me continue. So verse 8, okay, it says, remember that he has prepared thrones and crowns for you in heaven, saying, everyone who will obey me will receive thrones and crowns among those who are mine. The Mashiach says I will write my name on their forehead, and I will seal their right hand, and they will not hunger or thirst. Neither will the son of lawlessness prevail over them, nor will the thrones hinder them, but they will walk with the messengers up to my city. Now, as far as the sinners, they will be shamed, and they will not pass by the thrones, but the thrones of death will seize them and rule over them, because the messengers will not agree with them. They have alienated themselves from his dwelling. Hear, O wise men of the land, concerning the deceivers who will multiply in the last time, so that they will set down for themselves doctrines which do not belong to the Father, do not belong to the Son. And they were setting aside the actual Son of the Most High, the law, the Torah of the Father, those who have made their belly, their intuition, and themselves, they have made their own belly their Elohim, or their God. Okay, and so I don't have to read the next portion, because it does talk about the fasting, but it does say that they made their belly their God, saying that the fast does not exist, nor did God create it. And they make themselves strangers to the covenant of the Father, and robbing themselves of the glorious promises. I mean, you can literally place that to a lot of false doctrine. It's clear as day in how it's written and how it's talked about. And that's why it says in the last day, like, these multiple styles of doctrine are going to come out. And essentially they're robbing themselves of the promises that are available freely when we walk in the ways that we're supposed to walk. And it says, now these are not ever correctly established in the firm faith. Therefore, don't let those people lead you astray. Don't let them lead you astray. And then it talks about from verse 15 to 27 about a pure fast. Okay? So that was basically chapter 1 that relates to what we're talking about. And chapter 2 is going to give you more details of what has happened in the history. And it perfectly connects to Daniel, what he talks about as far as the different kings and things like that. Also connects very well with First Maccabees, and which we're going to read a little bit more. Okay. But chapter 2, make sure you guys read that for yourself. Some really good material in there. Okay. So now on to chapter 3. Man, there's been a lot of heat. I'm looking for my chapter 3. Okay. So yes, y'all, this is going to be a lengthy study, because I might even have to do a part 2 today, because it has to be fully put together. So if y'all have to end up leaving, it's all good, but I'm pretty sure I'll get it done in a 3-hour time slot. So we're on chapter 3 now. Now we about to really get into the real flow. Okay. So we talked about the antagonist. We talked about the way that movies are set up, right? So the antagonist, Matsima, okay, he's the son of lawlessness, or the son of Torahlessness. Okay. Torahlessness is not really a word, but it's a really good word to use with lawlessness or instead of lawlessness. But ultimately, we're going to read what it's talking about here. Okay. And I have some notes here. So it says in chapter 3. So now, chapter 3. It says, in the 4th year of that king, the son of lawlessness will appear, saying, I am the Christ. Although he is not, don't believe him. When the Christ comes, he will come in the manner of a covey of doves, with the crown of doves surrounding him. He will walk on the vaults of heaven with the sign of the cross leading him. The whole world will behold him like the sun which shines from the east horizon to the west. This is how he will come with all his messengers surrounding him. Okay, so pausing right there. So we have here, it says, the son of lawlessness, he will say that I am the Christ. Okay. And Christ is directly connected to the meaning of Mashiach, meaning the anointed one, They have direct connections when you look at the etymology of both words. So it's okay to use Christ, okay? But if you don't have to, okay? I'm not gonna sit there and put you in the bad corner because you don't use Christ. But that's just really what it's connected to for the Mashiach. So it does say he's coming in the covey of doves, etc. You can also find, obviously, in other scriptures how the Mashiach is coming. And just kind of divide it, obviously correct, because when you think about it, let's just say if we all had the same dream, or we all had a dream about the same topic, that it's going to look different for each one of us. Some of us will have the same descriptions, but some of us won't. The Most High knows what he's doing in dreams and how he's giving them, obviously. But the way that the prophets describe when the Mashiach returns and how it's going to be, how he returns, is going to be different for each prophet, but they're not going to be so far off from each other at all, if at all. So, for example, in 2nd Esdras, chapter 13, I put this one only. I don't need to read all of it, but this one is so fire. Chapter 13, it says, "And it came to pass after 7 days, I dreamed a dream by night, and behold, there arose a wind from the sea, and it moved all the waves thereof. And I saw, and behold, this wind caused to come up from the midst of the sea, as it were the likeness of a man. And I saw, and behold, that man flew with the clouds of heaven. And when he turned his countenance to look, all things trembled that were seen under him." Y'all, like, if y'all ever try to just close your eyes and just imagine, like, when he looks, and you understand, like, he's been described as having fire in his eyes. Like, I can't even imagine. Like, yes, everything trembles. The Son of Man we talking about, everything trembles. Man, even in that 2nd Esther chapter 7, even when someone passes before this specific time happens, there's a portion where literally, like, everybody's going to see him. Everybody's going to see the Father on his throne, and the Mashiach, the Son of the Father, on his right hand. And, like, the way it describes, like, everybody trembles. Literally, it's just because you're in the spirit realm. So what we don't see in the spirit realm, some people do see in the spirit realm right now. We've talked about that before in another study, but, like, literally, an example like Stephen in Acts chapter, I think it was probably chapter 7, when he's getting ready to die, he's getting stoned, he looks up and he sees the Mashiach on the right hand. And, he sees him on his throne. There's been a lot of connections with that, obviously, throughout Scripture. So just seeing that countenance part and seeing he turns and everything trembles, man. Verse 4, it says, "Whenever the voice went out of his mouth, all those that heard his voice burned, just as the wax melts when it fills the fire. And after this I saw, and behold, there was gathered together a multitude of men out of number." And they were basically making war, okay? And this is connected, obviously, to Revelation. So you guys, when you read this stuff, you can always go find more scriptures for it. But ultimately, it does talk about how he returns, okay? And then it says in verse 32, it says, "It will be when these things come to pass, the signs will happen, which I showed you before. Then my Son will be revealed, whom you saw as a man ascending." Okay? And it says, verse 37, "He, my Son, will rebuke the nations which have come for their wickedness with plagues that are like a tempest, and he will taunt them to their face with their evil thoughts and their torments. He will destroy them without labor by the law which is likened to fire." Likened to fire. Okay, so interestingly enough, right, John the Baptist says that the Mashiach will baptize in spirit and fire and in the Ruach. So that's just a chapter of how he returns. So you get more details. You go into Joel, all these prophets, they call them minor prophets and major. You'll see how he's coming. Okay, so this is a question This is a. You guys can obviously comment, but this is a rhetorical question that I'm not going to go into super detail about. But we're going to see how the man of lawlessness is coming. Okay? And when you first start hearing about the Son returning, again, we go back to Revelation being typically that first book of prophecy. And everybody pretty much knows about the four horsemen. And that's whether or not you believe in the word or not. It's usually, it's brought in so many cultures and religions and even, different philosophies, Gnostic, whatever. So with the four horsemen, the first one is seemingly like it's the Christ, right? So I'll go ahead and just read it. Come on, laptop. I'll go ahead and read it. Let's see here. Revelation chapter 6. Is it 6, y'all? Is it 6? I think it's 6. Yeah, it's one of the seals. All right, so it says in verse 2, it says, I looked, and there before me was a white horse, and its rider held a bow, and he was given a crown, and he rode out as a conqueror, built on conquest. Okay, so typically this has always been a verse that people will use to say that this is the Antichrist. Okay, now before I go into this, we have to understand that even when we understand something, we're always looking for more understanding. We're always looking for more connections. Okay, so I'm telling you guys, this is how it's always been presented. I've been in this walk pretty much since I was a kid, but the amount of understanding I have now and still growing, just thank the Most High, because it's like all of you. Like, we would have never known if he didn't present it to us and we didn't choose to really be open to more understanding and more truth, because we have to he's like sifting things so preciously over the course of our time and being with him, so that way when he gets us in spirit and in truth, like, we're more complete and connected to him, and we actually can connect to this heavenly body that he's giving us. Why would he just give you a heavenly body and you super dirty? Like going back to that moment in the spiritual spirit realm. I think it's in Zechariah when Joshua the priest, not the Joshua Moses' Joshua, but Joshua the priest is cleaned. He's cleansed from his sin. He's given the righteous robe. So that's a beautiful connection that you can always put together, just how he's done that for us. But ultimately, just going back to this, I kind of forgot something I said, but I'm just going to go back into this verse 2, okay? So, sorry, it was a thought that just kind of left. But basically, verse 2, it says that this rider is on a white horse, he has a bow, and he was given a crown, and he rose out, he's riding out as a conqueror bent on conquest. So this is always attributed to the Antichrist, okay? So there are scriptures where it says that the Mashiach is coming on a horse. Sometimes that horse, and it does talk about it being a cloud. Obviously, a lot of it clouds, and they could be obviously not synonymous, or connected together with each other, and just spoken of in a different way. The translation could have just been turned a little bit, but the difference is, it does say in another scripture in Revelation that he has a sword that comes from his mouth. The Son, the Lamb, has a sword that comes out of his mouth, and he is on like a horse, he has a white robe with a red vesture, things like that, and he's ultimately, like we saw in 2nd Esdras, destroying things with his mouth. Out come a flame of fire. His look, he's in his heavenly body. He's just the sun, the light coming from him like 100 times or whatever from than the sun. Just amazing stuff. So the thing here is, if this is the Antichrist, okay, coming in a white horse holding a bow, it's always said like, well, this one is holding a bow, and this one is, and the Mashiach is holding a sword, so it has to be the Antichrist. We're gonna see how in the revelation of Elijah how the son of lawlessness actually comes. Okay, and I'll come back to this. Okay, I'll come back to this. So just something to consider before we read this. Okay, so now we're going to read it. Okay, so now verse 5 of Revelation of Elijah. But the son of lawlessness will begin to stand again in the holy places. Okay, so remember I brought up Antiochus Epiphanes. Okay, in First Maccabees you hear his name throughout First and through Fourth Maccabees. So bear with me here. If you just got in here, I just ask for some patience because we got a lot of screenshots to get through today. So we talked about this, right? Matsima needs a host, and one of his hosts was Antiochus Epiphanes. Okay. And so I have a screenshot from, I think, Second Maccabees, if I can find it real quick. Okay, it says, now, I forgot what chapter it is, but it says, not content with this, Antiochus dared to enter the temple in all the world, guided by Menelaus, who had become a traitor both to the laws and to his country. He took the holy vessels with his polluted hands and swept away with profane hands the votive offerings which other kings had made to enhance the glory and honor of the place. Antiochus was elated in spirit and did not perceive that the Most High was angered for a little while because of the sins of those who dwelt in the city, and that therefore he was regarding the holy place. But if it had not happened that they were involved in many sins, this man would have been scourged and turned back from his rash act as soon as he came forward, just as Heliodorus was when Seleucus the king sent to inspect the treasury. So this is talking about another connection with committing what you see in the regular canon, the abomination of desolation, right? Going to the temple. So it's saying like if Israel basically wasn't in sin, they wouldn't have even let him come in to the temple, but it was for a reason. But he went in there basically trying to take away the things that were inside the temple. Now we also see that with Nebuchadnezzar, right? We saw that those things were taken away, and the Most High allowed that. When you go read another scripture, he says the Most High will not dwell in a place made with man's hands, right? But he allowed man to still build him a place. Because in our thought, we think we could put the Most High in the box. Yet again, our futile selves, our finite beings think we could put the Most High in a box. He's like, all right, I'll let you build me a temple. I'll let you build me a temple and you know, things like that. So you see Solomon build him a temple, and it was out of the goodness of his heart, right? But ultimately, what happens when the Mashiach dies? That veil is torn, right? It's so many things that happens to the temple. Okay, so when we are going to talk about the luminaries, or we talk about what's coming, like these different things about the seventh day and the tabernacle, right? The Feast of Tabernacles, it's important, y'all, because it's the most important. Passover is directly connected to the Feast of Tabernacles. Directly. Okay, so you start putting these little connections there. It's so amazing. It's ridiculous. But basically saying that the abomination of desolation has occurred before with Antiochus Epiphanes. And it says here in Second Maccabees, I don't know what chapter it is, it says, but the Most High did not choose the nation for the sake of the holy place, but the place for the sake of the nation. Therefore, the place itself shared in the misfortunes that befell the nation, and afterward participated in its benefits. And what was forsaken in the wrath of the Almighty was restored again in all its glory when the Most High became reconciled, or even the Mashiach when he became reconciled. Y'all, this is actual scripture. You don't see this a lot because we got to just keep reading. We got to keep finding all these gems. So Antiochus carried off 1,800 talents from the temple, like gold, basically, like the amount, and hurried away to Antioch, thinking in his arrogance that he could sail on the land and walk on the sea because his mind was elated. Who you think gave him this motivation? Matsima himself, y'all. Come on. Let me go back to y'all. This is like what's coming in this study. I can't even believe I'm not even there yet, but oh my gosh, it's about to get crazy. Okay. Oh wait. I can't show y'all that yet. Wait. Oh wait, actually, can I? Yeah, I think I can. Maybe not. Let me go to my other one, y'all. Some of y'all are reading like, oh. Let me. Okay. All right, we'll go back to that one. So it says, going back to Revelation of Elijah. Okay, it says, verse 5, the son of lawlessness will begin to stand again in the holy place. So right then and there, you literally see that he has to be here and be walking to go stand in the holy place. So when you go back to Revelation 6, and you see this first rider on a horse with a bow and given a crown, riding out as a conqueror bent on conquest, we might need to change our understanding of who this specific white horse is, right? And it may still connect, right? Spiritual realm, but we already know that Matsima is the prince of this world already. So why would he need another crown, right? The Mashiach has crowns on crowns on crowns. So the prince of this world doesn't need a crown. He's already prince of this world. And so, yes, there are connections in scripture we see in Daniel, etc., like, conquering. But when you're the leader of the world, Matsima, son of lawlessness, you don't need to conquer anything because now everything is culminated to you, right? We talked about that. And we're literally getting to the conflict. We're approaching the conflict, and the climax. And right at the climax, the man of lawlessness is right there because all these things are happening to allow him to be on top. Okay, so connecting it with going into the temple with Antiochus Epiphanes, what some people have actually done when you go research it. They've attributed Antiochus, Hitler, anybody who went into the temple and created abominations. They were like, oh, well, it got to be him. They'll even go to the point where they're computing their names as a 666 thing and all of that. So validity, but not quite, right? So it's literally telling you, the son of lawlessness, he's going to stand in the holy place. Okay, this is not all, y'all. So it's a point. It says, verse 6, he will say to the sun, fall, and it will fall. He will say, shine, and it will do it. He will say, darken, and it will do it. He will say to the moon, become bloody, and it will do it. He will go forth with them from the sky, and he will walk on the sea and the rivers as on dry land. He will cause the lame to walk. He will cause the deaf to hear. He will cause the dumb to speak. He will cause the blind to see. The lepers he will cleanse. The sick he will heal. The demons he will cast out. He's going to cast out his own friends. He will multiply his signs and his wonders in the presence of everyone. He will do the works which the Christ did, except for raising the dead alone. Okay? So now we're going to go to Revelation 13. Revelation, this is interesting. I said he cast his own friends out. He got little minions, old Groot and his minions. Some of y'all know what I'm talking about. Despicable Me. Somebody like, I don't know. Revelation 13. Okay, so we get understanding of this man of lawlessness because something's happening. So the beast out of the earth. Okay, earth, beast out of the earth. So it says here, Revelation 13, verse 11, it says, I saw a second beast coming out of the earth. It had two horns like a lamb, but it spoke like a dragon. It exercised all the authority of the first beast on its behalf and made the earth and its inhabitants worship the first beast, whose fatal wound had been healed. And it performed great signs, even causing fire to come down from heaven to earth in full view of the people. Because of the signs, it was given power to perform on the behalf of the first beast. It deceived the inhabitants of the earth. And I'll stop there for a little bit. So we see that the signs obviously accompany the son of lawlessness. So we're going to read 2 Thessalonians chapter 2 again. We're going to read the specific parts about this. It says, verse 3, don't let anyone deceive you in any way, for that day will not come until the rebellion occurs and the man of lawlessness is revealed, the man doomed to destruction. He will oppose and will exalt himself over everything that is called God or is worship, so that he sets himself up in the Most High's temple, proclaiming himself to be the Most High. So now, just to pause really quick, because, and I'm hearing it more so, and we'll talk about this in the coming time, but, yes, there's discrepancies in the New Testament, of course, but we still have to divide Scripture with Scripture, right? So when it comes down to Paul was actually, especially I know this community, like, Paul is, like, put down heavily because it's like, no, he's contrary to the Torah. He's actually not. We're going to talk about that in another study. He has a lot of things that he does say, but it was written in a way where it's like especially Galatians. Y'all know Galatians is like, what? But we're going to talk about that later. It's a little bit more we have to actually look at to see what he's actually talking about. However, Paul was a very studied man. Okay, even when he was Saul, he still studied basically with the rabbis or rabbinical Judaism, whatever you want to call it. And he actually had, I forgot his name, it starts with a G. Paul had the greatest teacher in that area, not on earth, but one of the greatest teachers. Okay, teaching him while he was Saul. So he knew a lot about pretty much anything that the Pharisees and Sadducees knew, he knew, right? So when he becomes Paul, he's literally turned into a new creation. He can't even eat after the Messiah reveals himself. And then he has to go to, you guys read in Acts, the guy, I think his name was Cornelius, et cetera, right? So he spends, I think it was 3 years, basically relearning. He didn't even go to the disciples or nothing like that. He spent quite a long time basically relearning from the Spirit, from the Mashiach, from like literally just how we have to take our time, being patient, learning. And then he goes to the disciples. So he didn't just straight out the back just go. He had to learn and relearn, reestablish. So he had access to something like revelation of Elijah. He had scrolls that he could access. So when you're reading letters, call it letters of Paul, not books, but letters from him, it's on the same level in a sense, like a testament, but it's just basically just letters where he's writing these things. He has a lot of connections to a lot of these apocrypha books because he read them and he studied them. Okay, so a lot of people love to put him down, but that man was very studied and he was powerful in the Spirit. You could take that away from him, but the Most High doesn't have doesn't take that away from him. So I just wanted to make sure that was clear. So yes, I'm reading 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, and it's clear as day the connection. We can't throw it out because it's Paul. right? It's connected, okay? So going back to verse 7, it says, verse 5, it says, don't you remember that when I was with you, I used to tell you these things, and now you know what is holding him back so that he may be revealed at the proper time. For the secret power of lawlessness is already at work, but the one who now holds it back will continue to do so till he is taken out of the way. And then the lawless one will be revealed, whom the Mashiach will overthrow with the breath of his mouth and destroy by the splendor of his coming. We already saw those connections too, just in a couple verses in 2nd Ezra chapter 13. The coming of the lawless one, verse 9, will be in accordance with how Satan works. Clear connection. Who is behind the man of lawlessness? Matsima himself. He will use all sorts of displays of power through signs and wonders that serve the lie, in all the ways that wickedness deceives those who are perishing. They perish because they refuse to love the truth and so be saved. For this reason, the Most High sends them a powerful delusion so that they will believe the lie, and so that all will be condemned who have not believed the truth but have delighted in wickedness. Okay, hitting a little bit more. So, going back to Revelation of Elijah, it says how the son of lawlessness will be revealed. He could already literally be here, most likely is, but we'll talk about that. But he has to be revealed. Okay, he's not coming on a horse in a certain style. Now, also within how Christianity and even in Torah community, not just now, but over a course of time, have painted basically the Antichrist coming is in the form of Jesus. Okay, so hear me out. Obviously, we know that the image of the Son of the Most High, when he was on earth, is not the one that's been painted, right, by Caesar Borgia, or it goes down in the history and Leonardo da Vinci, all that stuff, right? So, obviously, we know that that's been very fabricated. Okay, we know that at least with the name Jesus, there is validity to his name, to that name Jesus. Yes, I know a lot of you guys probably like, well, no. You have to hear me out because we are trying to grow. It's not me telling you to use the name Jesus, okay? But obviously they have roots of where it comes from in the Greek, etc. But the thought is he's going to come, and the son of lawlessness is going to come. He's going to look like Jesus, who they painted. Okay, so of course you have a lot of those who relate and say that they're blood Israel. People who look like me and whoever else is connected to Israel will say, and they'll speak out on that image. The image that we need of the Mashiach is how he's coming back, and also how the prophets have said he looks like, with the flame of fire in his eyes, in his glorious body. Even if it says burnt amber, it says like amber. Okay, it doesn't say it's super spot on. It's still, stop putting the Mashiach in a box. His body looks something we have never seen before with our very eyes. If you go research what fire looks like in amber, it's brown, it's golden, it's bronze, right? Burnt bronze, but it's like fire inside of this amber. It's something you have never seen in your life, but you can kind of get an image when you go look it up on Google. It's not just seeing the actual color and be like, yep, right? But yes, he doesn't look like that image, nor does the son of lawlessness look like that image that was painted about Jesus. So, this is a rhetorical question, especially for this community. If somebody knew and understood as much about the Torah as you do, or as somebody else who you see knows a lot more, and they were saying that they also follow in his commandments, just like you say that they obey the Shabbat, and even follow the same calendar that you're on. But they use the name Jesus. You know what this community will do? They will say, well, you can't join this community because you still use that name. So then the person that's telling that person you can't use the name Jesus, supposedly they have the right name. But then you go look deeper. You have a community or group that says it's Yahusha, it's Yahuwah. Oh, well, it's Yeshaya. Oh, well, no, it's Yasha. Oh, no, it's Haya. Well, no, it's Ahaya. It's a Heye. It's Yahawashi. It's Yahu. But looking at these scriptures, the son of lawlessness doesn't even look like that picture either. So, are we in error saying that the son of lawlessness will look like Christ? Christ is coming in a power state. The Matsima, he cannot come in power, but he's going to show the works that's going to look like Christ, because he has to put on a show. He has to put on a show so people can say, oh yeah, let me follow him. Because if he doesn't, if he reveals himself for who he is, like Job in the Testament, say, I see you behind, why are you hiding? Nobody's going to follow him. And we're going to actually read why. Because especially of how he looks. But even outside of that, we're going to see more. Elijah actually will describe to us what the son of lawlessness looks like, y'all. Okay? So, rhetorical. Somebody uses the name Jesus, and they're just like you. They speak, they understand this word. People are telling them that you're using a false name. You don't know who the Mashiach is. All these different things. Watch how we speak. You don't have to use the name Jesus. Yes, know better, we can do better. So if you're using Yahusha, all these different things, bro, it's terrible how we're going about it, but we can change it, y'all. We can literally change and understand it, and it's okay. And like you said, Watchman, it's a heart condition. Who looks at our heart day and night, constantly, 24 hours? You don't have to use name Jesus. Somebody told me, this is just really quick. I had one experience, and the only experience in the name of the Son. I had only one experience with this. It was sleep paralysis. Okay, so during the time I was young, I was in my first college. I was in the dorm, and a lot of spirits, in the dorm or whatever the case is. And sleep paralysis, if you ever had it, is no joke. Okay, so it's a dream, but your body, you can't move. You're stuck. So I'm in this dream, and it's dark. I'm in my bed, but it's dark. But all I see is the door, and I see light under the door. And I hear a demon laughing. And this demon is covering my mouth. And I'm like, But the first name I'm thinking of, and the only thing I'm thinking of, I say Jesus. So I'm like, Jesus. And it takes me some time to say it, y'all. So I finally say Jesus, and y'all, I kid you not, the demon stops laughing. And this is how he sounds. He says, ha, 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 ha. Because I finally said Jesus. Now, I learn more about his name and things like that in the Hebrew community, etc. So I go from Jesus, and I go use Yahusha. And I go from Yahusha, and I use Yeshaya and Hamashiach, and I'm using nouns and verbs. But there are people who knows Torah and uses Jesus, y'all. And they can flip in between other names, but ultimately, if the Spirit is producing, just like he saved me in that dream. You know what somebody told me? that it doesn't matter because you're still in sin and you got mercy for using that name. So people gatekeeping names all over the place, no fear, no fear, no fear, y'all. It's crazy. Why? Who are you? Who are we? He's going to give us his true name when we get here. I'm going to do a name study or whatever. There's something we're actually missing about his name that we're not even seeing. That is actually, it's right in the scriptures. But, you know, it's just really crazy. Even the whole Lord thing. I mean, oh man. So it's just trying to, you understand. Okay, you understand just what I'm saying. Go back, review, improve, whatever you guys are truly understanding what I'm saying. Okay, man, yeah. I see y'all comments. Spirit is which leads to holiness. Exactly. So somebody told me I wasn't woke in the truth because I don't speak ancient Hebrew and I call on the Son's name in Hebrew. I say Jesus. Man. I was not the author of confusion. He speaks in language we speak. Exactly. He's going to teach us his language. It's a lot of things, you guys, that is just so distorted. I spoke about tongues recently in the last study. There's literally scripture in Testament of Job. Tongues is a heavenly language that the angels speak. Some of you guys have spoke tongues before. It's just really quick because I just have to mention it because it just connected. That moment at Pentecost that happened, everybody was listening and hearing in their own language. It was a moment that the Spirit allowed that to happen. You can't put a cap on the Spirit and put the Spirit in a box. It was a moment in time. But what has happened? People say, oh, well, tongues is just another language. Like, you know what I'm saying? So it's understandable where we were, but we need to go where he's taking us, where he's trying to tell us where to be at in spirit and in truth. Okay? It's a heavenly language. So when Paul talks about not speaking tongues in the church, you know what he was actually saying? He was talking about the order. He said if it's speaking tongues in the church in front of all these people in the assembly and you're doing it without, there's no interpreter, it's not edifying to everybody else who doesn't understand what's being spoken. So if the Spirit isn't allowing an interpreter to speak and talk about what's the tongues that's being spoken by somebody, even if they're prophesying, if there's no interpreter, then it's out of order because everybody's like literally, and you guys have been there before, you hear people in tongues and it's kind of like, oh, okay, they're really in the Spirit, and then it might even shut down some things or shift things, you know. So it's like he was speaking literally on the edifying part of the body. He's talking about the gifts. Paul knew what he was talking about, man. Like we're trying to correct things to its detail, but that's just something. Another issue. People gatekeep and say, no, it's this. You guys have to watch and be careful who you're allowing to sit there and establish something in you without you going to go fact check and really study and be patient. Something can sound good, just like what I'm saying can sound good. Go read, go reread it, take it, jot it down, develop it. Like it's, you know. So anyway, so let's continue. So you notice, you guys, when it goes back to Revelation of Elijah, it says he will do, verse 12, he will do the works which the Christ did except for raising the dead alone. Okay? So John chapter 1, verse 4. John chapter 1, verse 4. In the Son, was life, and it is life. And that life was the light of all mankind. So remember, all have been created through the Son from the Father. So none is outside of him. That's why he is the Alpha and the Omega, the first and the last, the first of the creation, the last, because he culminates everything to himself, because that's what the Father allowed him to do. And guess what the Mashiach does? He gives it right back to the Father, as he has always done. Okay? I see y'all comments. Keep it going. So seeing how the man of lawlessness, he cannot raise the dead alone. He cannot produce life. So you remember, if you go back and read Exodus, okay, when the magicians of the Pharaoh was having this warfare with Moses and Aaron, remember the last one that they couldn't replicate, the last one, the last miracle, in a sense, was they couldn't produce the gnats. They couldn't have the gnats come out from quote-unquote thin air, because flies have life. Even these little tiny things. They couldn't produce that. And guess who they actually called Matsima, or one of the Egyptians' gods, their top god, Lord of the Flies. Your own Matsima Lord couldn't produce what he's named after. Talk about deception. And they're like, oh man, we can't even do that. All the way back there it's showing, and then this lawless man that Matsima is using can't do it. There's more to this though. Okay. I was going to show a little bit of spontaneous generation. I don't really have to go into that because I want to keep it flowing. But basically, or I show the screenshots, I don't want to show it. But basically, go look into that. Basically, they were trying to say that like life has generated out of nowhere, and they were using like gnats initially. Like gnats just come out of nowhere. You guys know, like if you see a gnat in the house, like what the heck, where did gnat come from? In a sense, it's like it just came out of nowhere, right? But when you go research how gnats actually come out, a lot of times they'll hide themselves in fruit. And this is, shout out to the wife, she'll clean the strawberries in, it's like a certain mixture. I don't know if it's like baking soda or something like that, and like vinegar, but basically it's like cleanses the fruit specifically for strawberries. And I remember when she first did that a long time ago or something like that. I could be saying it wrong a little bit, but basically I remember seeing little gnats in the water because they came out of the fruit. So when they say wash your fruit, yeah, wash your fruit. We can even wash them even better with certain practices. But I remember seeing those gnats, and that's what it says in research, that gnats hide in fruit. It's not to say like yeah, we probably ate a lot of gnats. Whatever, pray about it. But like if you have a banana sitting out in your home and it's getting dusty, right? What's gonna come from that banana? Ta-da! A gnat. Is that spontaneous generation? No, it's because a little gnat came in your luggage and was like, I'm here. But also, you guys, insects. It don't mean that the actual gnat supposedly is actually alive. I think I do have to show you guys this. So it doesn't mean that the actual gnat is alive inside the fruit per se, but it will, like, insects do come from like the ground and things like that, right? So it's getting generated from these things. So this is interesting. I think I'm supposed to show this at this moment. So you guys know about the food laws, right? So it's a lot that goes into the food laws, y'all. We're gonna eventually talk about that. But the term equivocal generation, sometimes known as heterogenesis or exogenesis, describes the supposed process by which one form of life arises from a different, unrelated form, such as tapeworms, from the bodies of their hosts. Okay, yes, we are cooking today, y'all. We are, bro. Y'all don't, this is just the beginning. We still not where we, anyway, tenacious is an infection with the intestines, something adult tapeworms belonging to the whatever, of eating contaminated undercooked beef or pork. They are generally no or only mild symptoms, uh, but segments of tapeworm may be seen in the stool. So guess where this tapeworm comes from? From this unclean animal, or obviously that the Most High has listed, but it's also talking about it's the pig or the pork or the undercooked beef is contaminated. So you have this contamination, and that's also an example of sin, right? Leprosy is an example of sin. So we look into a lot more stuff, but anyway, this insect, this worm or whatever, comes from what's contaminated. And obviously we talked about the banana. If it's decaying, this gnat is coming from a decayed fruit. The fruit still has life. Our seeds, the things that the Most High has created for us to eat, has life in it. The fruits, the vegetables, right? Even the meat, it had life. And that's why you go read it. He'll say, do not eat food with the blood, right? It's a lot of things, you guys, that we can, add onto our understanding. So it also talks about literally there's a pork tapeworm or whatever. Now look at this. Look at this real quick. So this is an example. People eat raw or undercooked pork containing cysts of tapeworm larvae. I don't know what number 2 says, but look at a little mutant right there. Attach themselves to the wall of the intestines, and then they become adult worms, produce segments that bear eggs, which may release eggs or detach from the tapeworm. The eggs or the detached whatever passed are in the stool, and the pigs or people are infected by ingesting the eggs. And then the eggs develop into spears which invade the wall of the intestines. The spears travel to the muscles and other organs, develop into cysts, and then you got what they call the bubble guts, but probably even worse than the bubble guts. I don't even know who Bubba is, but anyway, you got tape bubble guts or something. Yes, I just said that. You're probably laughing good because that was trash. Don't start saying tape bubble guts, please, because somebody gonna think I'm an idiot. If you say like, yeah, this dude said tape bubble guts, like, hear me out. Hear me out first. Hear me out. I know my brother gonna roast me about that. Wife, I'll take it. It is what it is. Here's another image. We're just gonna move past that. We're gonna move. It wasn't planned. It was just. Anyway, another image here. Okay, got a Subway sandwich over there from Larry, and it had a little tapeworm in there. Same process with the larvae, and now you eating tape bubble gut sandwich. So he got a whole business. But what was the point of that? Right? The gnats that are coming from, that were coming from that the Most High allowed to actually come, it had life in it. That's why Moses and Aaron, they were able to bring it about, because of the fact that, yes, these insects have life. And so ultimately what we're going back to is the man of lawlessness. The man of lawlessness is he cannot produce, he cannot raise the dead. Okay? He cannot raise the dead, and he cannot create life. Okay? So now Elijah, right? We already talked about who Elijah is, so he's going to give us actually what this man of lawlessness supposedly looks like. Now this is it's going to get crazy now. Okay? I need to actually let me just do my restroom break. Okay, I know you're like, oh, I'm just kidding, y'all fine. Let me take my restroom break. I wouldn't really eat if I were y'all, because it might make it a little like, but it's about to get heavy after this, all right? So let me go take my restroom break, 30 seconds or 1 minute. I'll be right back. All right, y'all. Okay. Let me see what percentage my battery is on. Okay, I can take it off the charger for a little bit. Okay. So, Apocalypse of Elijah. Yes, so we're on chapter 3 right now. And so, going back to the Elijah's credibility, we already talked about who he is, right? So, we know Elijah is one of the two witnesses. So, if he's coming back as one of the two witnesses, we understand that, yeah, he should probably, and especially at the time, and specifically at the time when the man of lawlessness appears and he reveals himself, he sits in that, like in the temple, he's going to stand again in the holy place. And it says in Revelation chapter 11 that it is another temple that's been built by the Gentiles, and you can go research that. They've been trying to build that temple on the Temple Mount for years. A lot of people, or some people, say that that's not the real place either, and all that. Just be careful how we divide this word still, and a lot of things sound good, and a lot of times it's obviously not on point. It could sound good. You could put together anything you want, make it sound good, but it doesn't mean that it's truth. It doesn't mean that it's divided well, right? So ultimately, they have been trying to build this temple for a long time. Specifically says that Gentiles will put it together. So even if you say, okay, well, yeah, there's fake Jews, yeah, okay, they are trying to build that temple, and they're trying to even restore the Levitical priesthood. So they're training. They have, and I remember looking up this information in 2013, 13, and they're like training like people, that are of age, the way that it says it in the Torah, to be Levitical priests. They're even remaking the menorah. They're trying to remake every little thing that's supposed to be in the tabernacle into the temple. And it may end up looking kind of like Solomon's temple, but it's not going to be the same, nearly the same, right? But it's in the works. They just don't have the quote unquote Temple Mount. They don't have that area. But they've been, connecting a lot more, of course. Signs of the times, trying to intermingle the religions, quote unquote, all this stuff that they've done. So, but it's already been in the works. Okay. So we're going to see how Elijah is going to describe this man of lawlessness. I got a screen. Okay. So I'm going to read it first. Then we're probably going to stop. I'm going to show you guys some pictures. I'm going to show y'all. This is where it goes. It starts getting crazy. Okay. So chapter 3, Apocalypse of Elijah. It says, he will do the works which the Christ did, except for raising the dead alone. In this you will know that he is the son of lawlessness, because he is unable to give life. For behold, I will tell you his signs, that you might know him. He is of a skinny-legged young man, having a tuft of gray hair at the front of his bald head, and his eyebrows will reach to his ears. There is a leprous bare spot on the front of his hands. Very specific. He will transform himself in the presence of those who see him. We know Matsima is the little transformer, and Jasher, he transformed himself into a kid, into an old man. He was talking to Abraham, talking to Isaac, trying to stop them from doing what they were doing. Talked to Sarah, right? So he's a transformer. He transforms himself. And as we see, Matsima needs a body. He needs a host. So, and also he even he actually, and also, I'm sorry, in that moment, he didn't necessarily need a host. He still, because he's a cherubim, he knows how to do this because we have a fleshly eyes too. Some people can see in the spirit realm, like I said. And we also, if we can't see directly into the spirit realm, we're using our spiritual discernment to understand, like the things that are going on, right? We even feel things, right? Through our spiritual senses that the Most High has given us in his spirit. So he turned himself into a brook I think it's Jasher chapter 28 or 25 or something like that. He turned himself into a brook with water and everything, like a little river. He turned himself into that. So it's because he could change the way that we see things, right? It says it even in scripture that he made Eve look at the tree like it was really good for food and make her wise, etc. And the Most High said that wasn't even the best looking tree in there. It didn't even look the way you saw it. It didn't look the way you saw it. Matsima made her look at it differently because why? He had access to her temptation. So when you go research and really reread Mashiach when he was led to the wilderness, right, for 40 days and 40 nights, a lot of people say that he was tempted. Mashiach was not tempted. Nothing broke into him to be tempted. He responded with himself or of the Father, the Word, who he is, and he broke any style or any access of any temptation, which meant like if Matsima presents to the son, oh, I'll make you a king, he's not thinking about it. Because what do we talk about in James chapter 1? Just so we can verify that information as well, just a little connection. James chapter 1 talks about trials and temptations. And it says, verse 13, when tempted, no one should say, the Most High is tempting me. For the Most High cannot be tempted by evil, nor does he tempt anyone. But each person is tempted, each man is tempted when they are dragged away by their own evil desire and enticed. So that means, we talked about this in spiritual warfare, the soul ties, right? We have direct soul ties with the demons because the demons used to be giants, right? And then the giants were a product of the fallen angels and actual human women. So because they're demons and Matsima has control over them, which demons are the evil spirits from the giants that die, and they inflict and they are trying to destroy us, that means they have a direct soul tie to try to tempt us and attack us. That's why we don't fight against flesh and blood, right? So they have it open to them. Mashiach was different. He was different because of the fact he came 100% spirit, 100% man. But then even when you see men and women who are of him in the Old Testament and New, when you get to a point where you are truly in the spirit, Enoch says that he didn't even have a desire for food because he understood the word, and he literally was wrapped in righteousness and wisdom. So can Matsima touch him? He can touch the body, but that's if the Most High allows him to do so, right? But what did Mashiach say? Don't be afraid of who can kill the body. Be afraid of the one, the Father, who can destroy the soul and put him in hell. Right? So when we get to a certain point, even Matsima, he runs away from Abraham because Abraham calls him out in that moment of the brook and says, I rebuke you. And Abraham knew the Son. The Son has appeared to Abraham, but that's a whole nother story. Son has always been there, y'all. But he had to come in our flesh. It was a specific time and place for everything in this whole timeline, right? So Abraham rebuked him. Judith, y'all know I love Judith, the book of Judith. Judith, when she heard people that were talking about doing stuff and trying to tempt the Most High to be like, well, if you don't bless us in a certain amount of days, then, we'll just give up our land. She said, what, are you serious? Don't you? She rebuked that, and she went straight to the Most High, prayed about what to do, and she went and did it with no fear of man, but a fear of the Most High. And that's why she has a book written after her. Women and men, when we get there, that's why we talk about these foundations, y'all. Wisdom, righteousness, and fear. If you're not building in that, if you're going to build itching ears to doctrine that just sounds good, but go back to the parable of the sower. If it's not in the good soil of your heart, and it's actually attributing to these three pillars, fear, righteousness, and wisdom, you're not going to truly be saved, because that's a salvation issue. It's nothing wrong with finding information on topicals, right? But we still want to understand, okay, what are we actually doing that's connected to these pillars? That's what we need. We need that to walk in power, which basically Enoch, Abraham, these great men and women, when they found the code, they unlocked the code, they walked in power. That's why it says that these commandments, these things that we're doing in his instruction, it's not too hard for us, because we can actually establish it when we literally unlock the formula which is written for us to walk perfectly in him. So just wanted to make sure we understood that, like, literally we have there's access for demons, Nasima, to try to destroy us and tempt us and things like that. But at the same time, it's just it's so different when you're really covered spiritually. You have that armor on. That's why that armor is so important. Whatever just came out, y'all, take that. Whatever just came out, because now my mind just now is on something else different. So going back to what he looks like, this is written, y'all. It's written here. You always have this reference now. It says that he will become, verse 16, he will transform himself in the presence of those who see him. He will become a young child. He will become old. He will transform himself in every sign, but the signs of his head he will not be able to change. Therein you will know that he is the son of lawlessness. Detail for somebody who is literally coming back, Elijah coming back. He's telling us some details, because he's coming when this man of lawlessness reveals himself. He knows what he looks like. So do we have some images or something to kind of give us a little bit of understanding here? Okay. So the tuft of gray hair. All right. Look at this, y'all. Let me see. I gotta get through these screenshots. Where is it? And like I said, y'all, be patient with me, because now the screenshot, all the images really, really coming out now. Come on now. I'm scrolling. I put it all together, but I'm gonna have to. Here. Okay. So this is one of the images. So a tuft of hair is usually defined as, it says a bald head, right? Tuft of hair is like just some hair in front, okay? But it does say it's gray. So we're just getting some type of visual of what it, like, where the hair is located or whatever the case is, okay? Let's see here, what else? Now, this is not me sitting here saying, or here's another one. These pictures are HD, boy. So that's considered a tuft of hair. He's bald, just so happens to be bald. Let's see here. Now, I'm not sitting here saying he is Antichrist. He is absolutely not. I know some people think he is, maybe, so we're not getting into that. But that is the little swoosh, whatever you call that, is considered a tuft of hair, okay? So, but it does say he's bald, okay? Trump is not bald. Some people say not yet, but I don't see him trying to do like a mohawk tuft or whatever you want to call it. Anyway, so we're just getting visuals, all right? Let's see here. What else? So it does say that his eyebrows will reach his ears. So if you really, um, Shar, anything that we call a credible source, we just divide it correctly. And this is obviously like with our studies, we just legit, we read it, we try to put connections together. I'll never put anything out that doesn't have, any connections. But this is for us to also, if nobody ever heard of this or, first time hearing it, go back and divide it correctly. Typically, you will not find this type of description in a lot of places. It is nothing wrong with saying, it's not quote unquote credible. It's for your consideration. Because there's literally, and that's why I went through who Elijah is and that he's one of the witnesses coming back. But, if Revelation of Elijah isn't credible, then Revelation of Zechariah or Zephaniah isn't. Revelation of Abraham, which I'm going to read some of that, isn't. So we just have to divide the word correctly, connect it together, and something to consider. Because let's just say we never saw this. We talked about it earlier. In Revelation chapter 6, that first horseman is always considered Antichrist, always considered man of lawlessness. And if he's already here and he has to stand in the holy places, which that has connections to Scripture, he wouldn't come in that manner, right? It says that he does the signs and wonders of Christ, right? And that's obviously to put on a show to have everybody believe him, because he has to deceive. So we're seeing a description of who he is, how he's walking. We have connections to Matsima and who he is because he's using this body. So we're just connecting it together, and giving this a foundation to kind of go off of and add to or take away, whatever you do in your own time. But you will always have this study to be able to go back in, and obviously always have Revelation of Elijah to pick apart. So hope that makes sense, Mr. Shar or Miss Shar, Mr. Shar. So yeah, I know y'all get off this man. He's blessed with eyebrows. So it says, and it's funny too, just to also speak also on the credible source. We hear something that's different. A lot of people will sit there and, discredit it immediately. And we have to, especially as people who study to show ourselves approved, take into consideration, right? And then you spend time with the book and patience and divide it and connect it with Scripture. I've done that with every book, even the regular canon, because that's always said like, oh, we'll take it exactly what it is. Hey, let's literally look at how its scriptures are coming out. It's okay to be skeptical, right? But we also are asking questions and dividing it correctly. When there's clear connections, you can't ignore the connections. The connections are the connections. They even have sites you can literally insert a scripture. It'll give you over 10 to 50 to 100 scriptures that connect with that scripture. So we're blessed in this time to really, really study to show ourselves approved. So that's what these studies are about. That's on this page. So I just want to make sure I mention that. All right. So it says that the eyebrows touch to the ears. So that's very hard. Very hard. A lot of people can't even get those eyebrows to the ears, right? But it's just an example of what it looks like. So it says there is a leprous bare spot on the front of his hand. That would mean like some type of spot or whatever, especially like leprosy. And then this is where it gets crazy. He will transform himself in the presence of those who see him. He will become a young child who will become a young child, and he will become old. He will transform himself in every sign. So Matsima has the ability to transform himself. We talked about this in the last study. I need to get this picture off, probably. Some of y'all are like, ugh. But I gotta keep it, y'all, yeah. But anyway, he's in the Book of Jasher, even in the Protestant canon, in regular canon. He's using people. He's turning himself into an angel of light, right? It's so many connections to him shape-shifting. ultimately, and he has changed himself into a child and to an old person, et cetera, right? So this is the crazy thing. I don't know if y'all ever watched the movie Benjamin Button. Okay, I haven't watched that movie all the way through, but I remember when it came out. I mean, there's really not many movies like that, but there's actually a real like Benjamin Button like disease. Supposedly, this toddler is the only one who suffers from it. So in the Benjamin Button movie, basically, he's decaying, but he's turning from old to young. Okay, the real similar Benjamin Button-like disease doesn't do that, but what it does is it's called. I have it here. It is called. Bear with me, y'all. Getting the screenshots. Give me a moment here. Okay, so it's called progeria, in short. And it says the body begins to age rapidly in progeria, meaning a child starts looking old within 1 to 2 years after birth, caused by a genetic mutation in the LMNA gene. Children with the condition rarely live past 13 years of age. Okay. Let's see what else screenshot I have for this. This is where all the screenshots just start coming and flowing through. It's gonna get crazy, y'all. And like I said earlier in the beginning of this study, the Most High has not given us a spirit of fear. He has not given us a spirit of fear, but of love and of power and of a sound mind. So some of this stuff will shock you. It's going to shock you. But we have to understand the times that we're in and what's going on. Okay, we have to understand why we need to be knowing our enemy and knowing what we're up against right now. So that's progeria, and then from this article, so I showed you guys this already. It says a 2-year-old girl stunned the medical community after she became the world's only or first or something sufferer of Benjamin Button disease. This rare disorder has caused the tot to tragically age prematurely and weigh around half as much as a healthy toddler. Suffers from mandibular dysplasia, a birth defect marked by an underdeveloped lower jaw and collarbone, skin deterioration, as well as selective fat loss and bones disappearing from the tips of the fingers and toes, according to rarediseases.org. Okay. Let's see here. So what we're doing, so this is like basically my thought process when I was researching these different things. This is another connection to mandibular dysplasia. It says that there's only 7 examples of that type of disease, or how they classify it, but none of them had that particular mutation. Okay, particular mutation. We got to make sure you guys catch on to these key words that's gonna really come up. But it's basically saying like that type of mutation made it like a Benjamin Button style disease, or like Benjamin Button. Let's see here. So it does say that this child, Massima turns from a child into old. Okay. This is, and just follow me with this thought. This is another example, of this specific disease. And a lot of times when we were younger, we did not know how to obviously label or know what was going on. If we ever seen this in public, you've seen someone like this in public, and this is the disease. I know I didn't know what they had. Another example, this is an actual person. He actually, they say you're not supposed to live past a certain age, and this person with this condition lived, I think, 16 or 17 years old. Something like that. He was on a TED Talk and everything like that. 17 years old. He had a rare condition. There's Benjamin Button right there, and the connection to the actual real life type of disease or mutation that happens. So, this is where let me see. It says that this happens 1 in 8 million people. This genetic disorder. If you read into things and you see how interesting the wording is, it's very interesting. Okay, so what's going to happen? I'm going to read chapter 4 a little later, but basically the two witnesses, okay, they're going to make war with the man of lawlessness, with Matsima, okay? And so later on it says that, I'm just reading just a verse from it. It says here that he's going to be basically mute, okay? And it's not saying, I think it's specifically in a certain time period, after, which you guys will see once we go over it. But it says that basically later on, they'll fight with him because he can't speak, okay? And we do go back and we read like Revelation 13, okay? And like I told you guys, go do your studies too, right? Revelation 13, it does say there's a beast that comes out of the water. Let me make sure I just read it right. And the beast that comes out of the earth, okay? Daniel chapter 7, you'll see what is always talked about as Antichrist with two horns speaking blasphemous words, right? Now, you do see in Revelation 13 that both of these beasts do speak, okay? So Revelation 13, verse 2, it says, a mouth like that of a lion, and let's see here, given a mouth to utter proud words, okay, and blasphemes to exercise authority for 42 months. He blasphemes the Most High and slanders his name and his dwelling place to those who live in heaven. He made war against the Most High's people and to conquer them. So within prophecy also, right, there's dual prophecy, there's connections, there's a way of order, obviously, of how prophecy is developed. So sometimes when you read something like this, it doesn't mean it has one meaning, or it doesn't mean that this is the only time it's happened. We already talked about that with Antiochus Epiphanes, where he did walk into, right, he did commit abomination of desolation, walked into the temple, took the things of the temple, but he's not the Antichrist, right? Obviously, he was one of Matsima's, what do we call it? Matsima's bodies, or Matsima's puppets, basically, that he used. So, with that being said, it does say later on in this chapter, Revelation of Elijah, that this man of lawlessness can't speak at a certain point, okay? So all I did was, when I was reading this, I saw that it said one of the heads of the beast seemed to have a fatal wound, and the fatal wound was healed, okay? And then it talks about the second beast, two horns like a lamb, spoke like a dragon. It exercises the authority of the first beast, and it makes everybody worship the first beast whose fatal wound has been healed. And so this beast of the earth is obviously attributed to the man of lawlessness that literally says he performed great signs, okay, causing fire to come down from heaven to earth, etc., deceiving the people, okay? So now, I'm thinking, okay, I'm reading this in Revelation of Elijah, and I'm seeing that the man of lawlessness will get quiet at a certain point, or he won't be able to talk. So oddly enough, when you read Revelation 13, you keep reading, it talks about an image of the beast being created, okay? So verse 15, it says, the second beast was given power to give breath to the image of the first beast, so that the image could speak and cause all who refused to worship the image to be killed. It also forced all people, great and small, rich and poor, free and slave, to receive a mark on their right hands or on their foreheads, so that they could not buy or sell unless they had the mark, which is the name of the beast or the number of its name. So you guys can obviously, some of you guys are really good with prophecy or whatever, dividing it, especially when you're reading like, the fatal wound that have been healed. Obviously, based off of how we're reading it, the first beast had this fatal wound that was healed. There's connections with that, right? The second beast, who we know literally is the man of lawlessness, there's an image that's been created that can speak, okay? In here, it does say the man of lawlessness is quiet at a certain point. He can't speak, okay? So it connects, because why do you need an image that speaks? Now, we talked about this. Matsima, the son of lawlessness, cannot create life. So he's giving power to put demonic life, quote unquote, into this image of the beast that speaks. And anybody that does not worship the image has to be killed. Okay? This is also where the mark of the beast comes from. Okay? So this is just me literally doing more research. Watch how all of this connects. Okay? So we're talking about this image of the beast. You guys understand artificial intelligence, or you ever heard of artificial intelligence, things of that nature? Now it's going to get crazy. A lot of you guys have seen the Avengers, right? You guys know who Vision is, or one of my favorite Avengers movie is Ultron, because there's so much in that movie with Ultron. They literally just laying it all out in the open, speaking on literally stuff that's coming. But we're gonna look into how Vision is actually created in the comics. So the comics bring a lot more in detail. But then obviously in the movies, it could change or it could be very similar. You can still put it together. Okay? Let's see here. Nope, not that. All right, bear with me, y'all. Oh, man. Okay. So the Vision is a synthezoid, whatever, advanced robot built to replicate the human form using Horton cells with the solar gem to give him consciousness. Okay, so we're thinking about right now, where we're going into this, is the image of this beast. So this image is somehow speaking. We know that the Most High has created who in his image? Us. So our bodies are made in his image, things that we have, our brain, things like that, right? So the Son comes into our body, does what he does, etc. And also he has a body. Technically, the Father does have a body. When you go research things, you'll see it's like, it talks about the wheels, etc. But obviously, like, the face is never described, because it's basically like quote unquote no face. But go research into that. That's another time that we'll talk about that probably. But ultimately, the enemy wants to recreate everything that the Father has created and turn it into his own. Okay, so this image of the beast is essentially and is a product that he's created, a quote unquote man, an artificial man that he's creating that has no real life, because all the life is in the Son. So he's going to create an image that can speak, a body that can speak, a synthezoid, as we literally are seeing here, that can speak. Okay, but let's continue. It's solar gem to give him consciousness. He was constructed by Ultron using parts of the original Human Torch, which was created by Phineas Horton. He was later modified using brain patterns partially based on those of Wonder Man, etc. So in the movie Avengers, you'll see the Vision is created from artificial intelligence that Iron Man had, named whatever his name was, and they were messing around with one of the stones, one of the Infinity Stones. And so essentially that Infinity Stone, something came out of it, which was basically the origin of Ultron. And he fuses with, his name was a J. The artificial intelligence had a name. But he fuses with the artificial intelligence, and then he becomes Ultron. So a robotic being, basically, that is moving around. And Ultron basically, like, starts upgrading himself, right? So that's true to the comics as well. But Ultron starts upgrading himself, right? So then Ultron, his main goal is to create Vision, a synthezoid, built to replicate human form. And with the gem that was already inside of Ultron, he has the power to also put consciousness into Vision. Okay? So I know it's kind of like, what? But let's keep going, because we know these people put stuff out in the open. They put stuff out in the open because they know what's coming. They know what's going on. So we're gonna read what is a synthezoid? A term originally, we're gonna get there, y'all. Jarvis. Originally coined by Dr. Hank Pym to indicate a special type of android, also known as a synthetic humanoid robot. They are empowered by synthesizing solar energy and are replicas of the human body, containing analogs to virtually all human organs, brain, blood, and tissue, composed of a synthetic organic-like substance, Horton cells. This substance mimics all the functions of human tissue, but is several times as strong, durable, and resilient. Okay? This is what Marvel has put in their stuff, y'all. And so what's a picture of these synthezoids? Look at this. This is a picture of synthezoids, basically, looking like a modern day family with life. Obviously, different little skin tone or whatever the case is, right? I told y'all I was gonna get deep. And they have a movie called Surrogates. They got a couple movies like this that's related to this AI technology mixing in with, the human body and things like that. But Surrogates, basically the idea of this movie is that, I may even have a screenshot on the little synopsis of it really quick. Told y'all, like there it is. The film's main concept centers on the mysterious murder of a college student linked to the man who helped create a high-tech surrogate, or synthezoid phenomenon that allows people to purchase remote-controlled humanoid robots through which they interact with society. These fit, attractive, remotely controlled robots ultimately assume their life roles, enabling people to experience life vicariously from the comfort and safety of their own homes. This is a movie. That's the surrogate movie. Okay? So, still, we're talking about this because of the image of the beast. Remember, the beast, the man of lawlessness, Matsima, cannot create life. So his way that he's going to create this image of the beast is going to look totally different. Totally different. Okay? So, also, you guys remember, it says in here that the synthezoid, the same, basically what Vision is from whatever these Horton cells are, okay? So what are the Horton cells? We're just seeing the definitions that they're putting out. Horton cells are synthetic replicas of human cells using plastic and carbon polymers. And yes, y'all, this is on Marvel. It's there. You can literally read it for yourself. They duplicate the structures found in organic human cells. They were created by a brilliant scientist, Horton. These cells can be grown in a culture and compatible with humans. The cells can activate latent mutant and inhuman physiology. Even in small clusters, they are capable of generating and starting a remarkable amount of power. Okay? So what are we getting from this? It's just like, quote unquote, like human cells. Okay? That they're making this synthetic being with AI technology, etc. They're making a like human. Okay? And then you guys remember they also mixed in that solar gem or whatever. You remember in the movies, Vision, he has that infinity stone on his head. So they needed that power from this random gem. In the comics, it's called the solar gem. So it was a device created by Horton to power his robotic creation, a synthetic man. The gem combined with the solar epidermal covering, so the skin of its body that focuses on sunlight and converts it and distributes the energy evenly throughout. So basically like a whole being, like literally a synthetic man. The gem works like a human brain and it's 100 times more powerful. Okay? It allows creation to become conscious. What does that sound like? Like life that's put into this image from Matsima to speak and become conscious. Okay, let's continue. Now this is crazy. Let's see here. So yeah, that's about Ultron. He was a sentient. He was a robot, high intelligent. So I'm gonna read a little bit here. So the Human Torch. So you guys know who the Human Torch is. Flame on, right? He's covered in fire. It says that his existence came from artificial intelligence and robotics. The culmination of Horton's research was an android who mimicked virtually all of the functions of a human being, including independent thought, but was composed entirely of synthetic materials. Okay, so that's supposedly where the Human Torch comes from. He has a quote, actually, that I wanted to share, but I don't think I have it, y'all. But basically, he goes and gets revenge, basically, something like that. Some type of revenge or whatever the case is, but he basically refers to hell as where he's putting everybody, and that he's a reflection of hell. Literally, if I had the screenshot to show y'all real quick, I would. I don't have it. I can't find it yet, but let's continue. And some of this might be out of order, y'all. So y'all just gotta follow me with this. So I got this from End Times Watchmen. Put a video out. Took a couple of screenshots. Okay. A machine learning investor or something like that. Like AI is becoming like a god. And you see how it's looking right there, like a synthetic man. Okay. Immortality is possible in 2023. So these are news article titles, right? Dead loved ones can live forever by uploading consciousness to computers. So just keep this in mind, because it's gonna get pretty weird. So some of you guys haven't seen this movie. Maybe you have, but somebody mentioned clones in the comments, right? So not by accident. Very good movie put together, but somehow these clones are underground, already made, and essentially they are synthezoids. They're synthetic people, literally looking just like people, and they come to take over the life of the ones that they replicate. Now, the idea also in the movie that's presented is, do these synthetic beings have life? Because they are looking just like humans, but do they have life? What do we already read in the scriptures? Matsima can't give life. So he has to create a different style
in his image. That's going to look totally different. Okay? So, yeah, sister, that's why like we pray before we watch these movies, and the spirits be coming from these movies. Look, little Modern Family. Look how demonic they look, y'all. This is what they're putting out because they know exactly what's going on, what they're doing. The point was they were taking over the lives of the real people. Yeah, like exactly Walking Dead. Yes. This is another picture of us. They're holding hands. Is that not symbolism, y'all? It's not symbolism, but it's going to be more clear. It's about to be more clear. Child of the Book, are you in here? So my boy, Child of the Book, we have a lot of conversations. Please follow his page. I think he's going to start posting more on it. Some real great information. But I couldn't even post nearly a lot of the information he shared with me or put in this study because it was way too much, specifically for the time and just, it was crazy. But I did a pretty solid job just getting us to really like see what we really need to understand. But yeah, he's going to be putting some more stuff on there, so please make sure you follow his page. Cause I can't, that's why we all work, all laborers in this walk to help all cover different areas, and he got a lot of stuff covered with this stuff that's going on in this world. So, but you will see, if you're not convinced by just this alone, I got some more. Man, okay, so there's this article that's about artificial intelligence. Okay, I'm gonna read some. The screenshots might be out of order, but you guys are gonna get the gist of it. It says, as biotechnology advances, so too many our ideas of what it means to be human. Today, we can alter our bodies in previously unimaginable ways, whether that's implanting microchips, fitting advanced prosthetic limbs, or even designing entirely new senses. So-called transhumanists, people who seek to improve their biology by enhancing their bodies with technology, believe that our natural condition inhibits our experience of the world and that we can transcend our current capabilities through science. So now we're transitioning into talking about transhumanism. Okay, and this is obviously an article about transhumanism. Do I have a screenshot just to show real quick? We're about to really dive in deep in transhumanism, but it's a very simple. It's a very simple way to understand it. Okay, let me see here. Transhumanism. Okay. 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 So transhumanism. If you never heard of that word, now you got something else to look up too. Let's read it real quick. It means that it's a philosophical and intellectual movement which advocates the enhancement of the human condition by developing and making widely available sophisticated technologies that can greatly enhance longevity and cognition. Okay, so trans means across, right? Just in a general sense, across or over, something simple. So essentially they're trying to, what? Connect technology and mankind. Literally, physically, spiritually, and mentally. We know Massima cannot, I have to keep repeating it so we know where our mindset is, why we're even looking into this. He cannot create life. So his life that he's putting into this image is going to look totally different. And just so we also understand what's going on, what does the scripture say? As the days of Noah, Okay? I'm going to read it again. Matthew 24, 37 to 39. As the days of Noah were, so shall also the coming of the Son of Man be. What was happening in the days of Noah? Why did the flood also have to happen? And mainly have to happen. The fallen angels were mixing with mankind, transhumanism. And what did they produce? Giants who became demons. What is Matsima, who is behind the scenes of that, trying to replicate? It's real, y'all. It is real. It's real. As the days of Noah were, so shall also the coming of the Son of Man be. This is supposed to be a time that we have never before seen in the history of the world. So Matsima, he's getting ready to be locked up forever. He's going to go as hard as he can. So this is not no movie, or it is technically a movie, right? We talked about that. It's a movie. The antagonist is about to go crazy. And it's already been crazy. He's been developing all this stuff, but we want to literally talk and see more. So within this same article, it says the book features a variety of people who identify to some degree as transhuman, including a man with bionic ears that sense changes in the atmospheric pressure, a woman who can feel earthquakes taking place around the world, and technicians who have developed lab-made organs. You guys, this is real. We got gifts of the Holy Spirit. It's not enough for them. It's not enough. Okay? Let me continue. Okay, so it says, Japanese gaming giant Konami worked with prosthetic sculptor Sophie whoever to design a set of bionic limbs for Young. The result of the arm and leg made from gray carbon fiber, blah, blah, blah. It says Young's robotic arm features a USB port and a screen displaying his Twitter feed and a retractable dock containing a remote control drone. This, by the way, this live will probably end up stopping because it's like a max time or whatever. And of course, I'm going to come back on and continue part 2. There's no way I need to wait and do this another day. We got to get this out. I got to get this out so I can move on. So just letting y'all know, if it just suddenly stops, that's why. I'll save it and I'll get back on. It says the limbs are controlled by sensors that convert nerve impulses from Young's spine into physical movements. It says advanced prosthetics enable James to change people's perception of his disability. When you first show people the photographs, they are shocked and disconcerted by ideas containing within, but if you dissect the ideas, they realize that they are very pragmatic. Okay, so what does he look like? Oh no. Hold on, you guys. Need to drink a little water here. What does this guy look like here? Of course, they provided images. Let's see. Oh, come on. Hold on, y'all. Just be patient with me. I'm sorry. I know I put it in here. Okay. There he is. This is a real photo from this article. Okay, and it says, I can't really read what it says at the bottom there. Sorry. He's been drawn to the aesthetics of whatever. But basically, like, they're putting stuff that's basically saying that he came into a rebuilding, because transhumanism is about connecting with technology and ascending the regular human state, right? It's going across. The only reason why they would connect with tech is so they can not be regular human again. Okay? Yep, just like Winter Soldier. It's not by accident they put this stuff out here. They just do a really good job with entertainment, right? um, it says something about. I thought I did better with this one, but the bionic arm can feel pain, instantly replaced if you have the money. It has different abilities to withstand heat and not be sunburned. So there you got the benefits, quote unquote, to the benefits to show people this is a good thing. It's always going to be an angel of light, right? Enemy is always going to be an angel of light. So he says he continues shooting the portraits, whoever this is. Yeah. So, bro, I'm not even going. I don't even have everything. This is going to be a whole different study, and that's why I was going to mention this. Obviously, thank you for commenting. So you guys follow my guy here, and so this might just be your portion, bro, because you got more information. I don't need people to. I'm not trying to keep people to myself, right? So, I appreciate the follows, of course, but you got all the information. You know what I'm saying? So more information. I got some stuff, but this could be like this is your time. So we just got to be put on game, in different manners and different ways by brothers and sisters. So that's why I was gonna say for you, if you start posting again, like make sure I'm gonna be following because there's no entire way. The stuff, the studies I have lined up is all connected. They gotta stay in this train of whatever the spirit has already told me, and this is all you, bro. All I can do is share it and add my 2 cents, of course, and any research. But I don't have nearly the time. We could even get on a live together, talk about it, whatever. Hey, we'll make it happen. I don't have nearly the stuff that you sent me. It's impossible. I have to this is the foundation for the man of lawlessness. So it ain't gonna be like super. You know what I'm saying? Yep. Yes, sir. So going back to here, it says the process also raised a profound question. If technology can change what it is to be human, can it also change what it means to be beautiful? Y'all, Matsima, did he not change from the most beautiful till he looking trash now? In Testament or Revelation of Zephaniah that we read before, in the last study, he describes what the angel looks like, or what Matsima looks like, and it's like a lion waiting to devour. His teeth are outside of his mouth. He got lioness hair all spread out, dark looking, like, so it's really, that's why he's also behind the scenes. You guys remember that movie, Wizard of Oz, right? When that wizard, he was always looking crazy and scary. And then little Toto, when they got to in front of the wizard, little Toto was like, "Who is that behind the curtains?" And took away the curtains, and the old dude, look at that, not by accident, the dude was old. He turns around, he's like, oh. He tries to cover the curtain again, but they see him. They're like, wait. And they unveil who was the Wizard of Oz. Did you know that also in a prophecy of Gog and Magog, it sounds like a lot like Oz or Gog in a sense. There was a giant supposedly called Og, and he was a king over whatever. It's crazy, bro. They don't do this on accident. They don't, because who you think is controlling these movies too? So it says down here, last paragraph, most of my original work centers around people, their behavior, characters, whatever, blah, blah. So here's another picture. So this is the other picture of that arm, okay? If I can find it. It said it had like a USB port and stuff. Look at that. Checking his Twitter feed. This is real. It's real. Portraits. Okay, so It's going to be some more pictures. I don't know. It's not going to all be together. So it says another subject in this book that was written was the robot Sophia. So she's pretty famous, right? You guys have seen her. She's the most advanced humanoid robot to date. Hansen said that Sophia's form would resonate with people around the world, and that her appearance was partly inspired by real women. Ooh, look at the motivation to connect, to be trans, to trans across the way, to connect to technology. So Sophia. So let's look a little bit, have some more images of this Sophia. We talked about the synthezoid, right? From Marvel, the synthetic skin. She's able to make all these different facial expressions. Y'all can go research it yourself. Obviously, this is a whole foundational piece to go research, tear apart, and I'm just setting this tone, showing these pictures, a million screenshots. Most High has not given you a spirit of fear, but of power and love and a sound mind. Who do we fear? We fear the Mashiach, fear the Father, reverence unto Him. This is her eye, what her eyes look like. Look at the wrinkles, synthetic skin, or whatever. Bro. She's sad. Like I told you guys, yes, it was going to get a little heavy. So, you know, guys, I'm going to save this. You guys can always look back at it. But it's some more. So, oddly enough, the robotics company that creates this is called Hansen. Okay? Oddly enough, I mean, it's not like that deep, but Hansen Robotics, right? And then we go back to Marvel when it talks about who this doctor or whatever. You got Hank. Like, why H? Like, then you got Horton. Oh, here's a quote, y'all, from Human Torch. It says, Professor Horton said it was an accident that I burst into flame, but if he knew, what if he intended this? He already knew that what you were doing. My creator, Phineas Horton, was Jewish. Yo, I didn't make this up, you guys. This is what they write on here. It says, you burned them, you did this, you would claim to be masters of the world. This is why I am the way I am. Let this be the taste of eternity, so you will know hell when you get there. Crazy. So Human Torch was created from these synthetic, these cells that resemble real human cells. Like we talked about, truth in plain sight. Exactly. Horton. Okay, Horton. And then you go back to who created, who's over the tech for whatever her name is, Sophia. And you know, Sophia is also one of the goddesses and the main goddess of wisdom. So you obviously see wisdom from the Mashiach and the Spirit from the Father. Is the name for that one is it's wisdom, but I think it's not Chodesh. I'm sorry, I forgot. Wisdom, Hebrew word, Chakma. Okay, so cool enough too with Enoch. Enoch is like Shanak in the Hebrew. So it's some connection with wisdom, obviously, right? Because he was giving us wisdom. So it's It's really interesting. But Hansen and it's like the names are way too close, bro. And it's not by accident. But let's continue. Let's see here. It says, I fear that if we could design humans without any of the flaws that occur in the biological makeup, things will be pushed further and further towards a level of perfection we can only imagine right now. Look at how plastic surgery has altered our perception of beauty in a very short space of time. If the transhumanists are right and we as humans can live to be several hundreds of years old, our notion of beauty and the very meaning of what it is to be human will change dramatically. Why do y'all think that is the case? Going back to the image of the beast, it's all connected to this thing that is coming, that's already in development of what's been going on. This is, bro, and look, this is some other pictures of people they took pictures of in this article. So this is real. He has a implant in his eye, in his right eye, of course. It's symbolism, of course, left eye, right eye. But he has it installed. Surveying or whatever. Legit, this is real. At first I don't know if it was real or they were trying to say what could be, but supposedly it's real. And they're quote unquote, they are out there, people who have already engaged in transhumanism. And I'm going to talk about something else a little bit. So it says this lady claims to be the first to successfully do something where she's stopping aging. So she looked normal, but she got some transhumanism, something installed in her that's going on, where she's supposedly one of the first that can feel stuff or whatever the case is. I don't know. Y'all, it's about to go deeper. I know it's a little crazy, but like I said, bear with me with these screenshots. All right. There's the first one that was busted. Okay, so let's keep moving on. Another article, God and the Machine, My Strange Journey into Transhumanism. After losing her faith, a former evangelical Christian felt adrift in the world. She then found solace in a radical technology philosophy, but its promises of immortality and spiritual transcendence soon seem unsettlingly familiar. Real article. Okay, so we're going to talk about now the transhumanism. Did you guys know that there is something called Christian transhumanism? If you've never heard of it before, welcome. So I forgot which website this is, but it's obviously a website that's all about Christian transhumanists. Oh, there it is, Christian Transhumanist Association. So this is their affirmation on the page. We believe that God's mission involves a transformation and renewal of creation involving humanity, and that we are called by Christ to participate in that mission, working against illness, hunger, oppression, injustice, and death. We seek growth and progress along every dimension of our humanity, spiritual, physical, emotional, mental, and at all levels, individual, community, society, world. We recognize science and technology as tangible expressions of the Most High's given impulse to explore and discover, as a natural outgrowth of being created in the image of God. That's what they're saying. We're guided by Jesus' greatest commands to love, you guys know, blah, 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 following Christ, identity. So this is what their affirmation is, okay? Just nuts, but it goes deeper, y'all. They have on there their pillars, and I think it's going to be out of order, but it's okay. So site, ecology. So I'm going to read through all of this. But basically, they list out everything. They list out everything that is coming, or everything that they, as transhumanists, stand for. Okay, so like I said, it's going to be out of order, the article or with the screenshots, but I'm just gonna put it on the screen. They say we stand on the cusp of the emergence of machine intelligence beyond human abilities. What did we just read? The image of the beast, getting life. That the enemy Matsima cannot create life. It has going to be an artificial life. And this image can talk. It says we also stand on the cusp of ways to enhance biological intelligence. Artificial intelligence defined as prediction from patterns is now ubiquitous. But we remain far from human level artificial general intelligence. Christians must advocate for care with the use of AI and AGI. It must be transparent and accountable to the community. Impacts must be measured and published. AGI requires human-like ability to observe, abstract, and develop explanatory knowledge. What was the lie that Matsima presented to Eve? You will be all-knowing like the Father and the Son. Let's continue. This is not likely to occur for a decade or more, but in the meantime, we must consider and manage the risk. So like I told you guys, the screenshots are going to be out of order because on IG, it's tough to really... Okay, so it said I got 2 minutes remaining, y'all. So I'm going to use these 2 minutes. I'm going to go ahead and read as much as I can. And then I'm going to come back on after I save it. Super intelligence. Okay, so they also put immediate actions, okay, that you can take right now as we prepare for what's coming. So of course, because it's Christian transhumanism, they're gonna incorporate things in the word to try to obviously make it better than what it is and things like that. We already know how many religions and fraternities and things like that have come from it. Down there it says engage with tech so that you can, in a positive way, that it makes you stronger and connects you better. Cut out tech that makes you weaker or waste your time. And it says plan your future. What kind of tech would you adopt as it becomes available? What would make good tech? Will you be an early adopter of some? Engage with human enhancing tech in the first instance for uplifting the poor and disabled, exoskeletons, brain-computer interfaces, visual systems, bionic eyes. You guys, real. It's real. Antichrist agenda is just like you said, getting us to trans across into this synthetic and this new style of body, as the days of Noah were, so will the Son of Man be. So it's